Chapter 1442. Bought from a supermarket? Then it shouldn't be a problem with the dresser. If it was an antique found in a second-hand store, it was very possible. Many of the supernatural incidents that Pancat received were because the employer found something strange in a second-hand store. And then the supernatural incidents happened. That was something placed on the dresser. It had to be said that any woman's dresser would have a lot of cosmetics. It wasn't easy to find something unusual among so many cosmetics. Finally, Pancat discovered that among the cosmetics, there was a wooden comb that did not fit in with the rest of the cosmetics. When Pancat picked up the wooden comb, he immediately felt a strange aura. The needle of the compass in his hand was also jumping wildly. Sure enough, there's something wrong with this comb. Pancat looked at Shara. Where did you get this comb? I bought it from a handicraft shop, Shara said. What kind of handicraft shop? Pancat asked. It's on Downey Street, 558? Pancat continued. Huh, Mr. Pancat, do you know that shop? Pancat was even more puzzled. How did you find that shop? What do you mean how? I just went shopping and saw that shop, so I went in to take a look. It's hard to imagine that such a special shop would exist in such a busy area. Is there something wrong with that shop? That shop belongs to a spiritualist. Only a spiritualist like me can find that place. But you don't have any magic on you, so it's impossible for you to find that shop. 558. Downey Street is very famous among spiritualists. But I found it. That's the strange part. Pancat looked at the wooden comb in his hand. How much is this comb? $300. Pancat looked at Shara. She's really rich. Even as a spiritualist, I can't spend $300 on a magic comb. However, 558. Downey Street shouldn't sell items that brought bad luck. Pancat's heart skipped a beat, and he suddenly understood. It wasn't that the people in that shop deliberately sold items that brought bad luck. It was because the magic item itself had magic, which attracted unclean things. If the buyer was a spiritualist, of course, this wouldn't be a problem. After all, no evil spirit would take the initiative to find trouble with a spiritualist. But Xiaola was just an ordinary person, which became the biggest problem. Pancat examined Shayla a few times and confirmed that she was indeed an ordinary person without any magic. That was strange. It was impossible for an ordinary person without magic power to see 558 Downey Street. After all, that shop had a long history, and no ordinary person had ever been able to find it. Of course, as long as he could enter the store, the people inside wouldn't reject him. This wooden comb was a magic tool, but it was not the cause of the supernatural incident. The wooden comb itself would not harm its owner. However, the thing that was attracted by the wooden comb obviously harbored ill intentions towards Xiaola. Even if he destroyed the wooden comb, it would not solve the problem. If he wanted to solve the problem, he still needed to get rid of the thing that was harassing Xiaola. Miss Xiaola, if it's convenient, I might need to stay here tonight. Pancat looked at Xiaola. Shara hesitated for a moment. After all, she was a man and a woman in the same room, and the other party was not an acquaintance, so it was inevitable that she would be in a difficult position. However, Shara really did not dare to stay at home alone. If there was someone with her, she would feel more at ease. Mr. Pancat, you can solve my problem, right? Don't worry. I'll protect you. Feilai, where are little Jerlin and Larissa? When Chen Zhao returned, he saw Feilai lying on the chair with a mask on her face. Chen, you're back just in time. Help me apply sunscreen, Feilai said. There's still too much sunlight by the sea. Chen, do you have any whitening products? Feilai asked. Actually, Feilai was not pale at all in the past. After all, she was a member of the coastal rescue team. How could she be pale? However, ever since she got pregnant, she rarely went out. The 10 months of pregnancy had whitened her skin a lot. Now she did not want to tan anymore. I'll make some tonight, Chen Zhao said. Your 2 daughters are at the beach below, Feilai said. Although she was sunbathing on the chair, she could still see the entire beach. There were also many pets on the beach. Jerlin and Larissa would not be in danger. In the sea, the 5 tiger generals were the gangsters of this coastline. Apart from the 5 of them, there were no other sharks wandering around. The only things that could threaten the 2 children on this beach were poisonous creatures like sea snakes and conchs. However, they always had anti-venoms at home. Also, Walter, Black Ma, and White Ma often patrolled the beach. Their sense of smell could distinguish conchs. However, they did not appear often in Los Angeles. Injuries only happen once every decade. Chen Zhao could not stop his 2 daughters from playing on the beach because of this. As for sea snakes, they were easier to find, so they were not much of a threat. Little Larissa could already move on the beach with her limbs. At the moment, she was sitting on the beach. Beside her was a small bucket filled with seashells. Little Jerlin was carrying a small giant clam shell as she ran towards little Larissa with a face full of joy. Little Larissa, look, isn't it big? Yeah. Little Larissa laughed happily and clapped her hands with all her might. Only in the evening did little Jerlin and Larissa reluctantly be carried back to the villa by Black Ma and White Ma. Dad, Mom, we haven't had dinner yet. Why can't you let us play for a while? Little Jerlin crossed her arms in front of her chest, looking unhappy. However, her arms were not long enough. Because she was hung in the air by Black Ma, she looked funny. There's chicken soup tonight. If you don't come back soon, Princess will drink it all. The so-called chicken soup was stewed with undying birds. There was no such thing as confinement overseas, but Chen Zhao still wanted to help Fei Lai recover. However, Fei Lai could only drink 2 bowls of chicken soup at most. The rest would be taken by the 2 kids and their pets. Little Jerlin aside, little Larissa also knew how to drink chicken soup, and she liked it very much. Chen Zhao was now considering if he should go underground again. He wanted to see if he could hunt more undying birds. After all, the last one was almost finished. Chapter 1443. Chen Zhao decided to organize an underground expedition. He would find the participants from the association. It would be a test. He would also see if he could catch another immortal bird. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't have high hopes for this. After all, even if he could find one, it would be very deep underground. Other than Gaia, no one else could withstand that kind of temperature. Also, Gaia was immune to fire, but that didn't mean she could withstand endless heat. In fact, Gaia's heat resistance wasn't even as high as Chen Zhao's. Hey, Wes, tell the people in the association that we'll be training on temperature resistance. I plan to organize a group activity, an underground exploration. Those who don't have any resistance to temperature don't need to participate. At the same time, get Padalu and Jalik to study heat-resistant suits. Ever since the gale, Los Angeles had been too quiet. Even some of the commissions were half compared to usual. The association was very free, so Chen Zhao wanted to use this opportunity to give them something to do. Of course, giving them something to do wasn't asking them to die. Chen Zhao couldn't let a bunch of weaklings go deep underground. However, Wes didn't know if he misunderstood Chen Zhao's meaning. He called the underground expedition an underground treasure hunt. Then everyone's enthusiasm soared, including Klaus and the lightning team. They all started training for heat resistance. All of them belonged to the physical strengthening category. Therefore, their heat resistance was also very high. Plus, they weren't going to crawl into a hole half naked. When the time came, he would definitely have to wear protective clothing and cast protective spells. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't know that his sudden idea had caused the entire association to boil. President, you're targeting me this time, right? Helis called Chen Zhao, her voice filled with dissatisfaction. What? How am I targeting you? You know that I can't stand heat, and you still want to go underground to search for treasure? Helis wanted to go. No matter how aloof and unapproachable she usually was, she was still a young girl. Actually, on normal days, if there were any activities in the association, or if anyone needed help, Hallies would help them. She was a warm-hearted girl. But even Chen Zhao couldn't help but feel that Helis was a bit antisocial. Wait, treasure hunt? What treasure hunt? You don't have to hide it. Mr. West told me everything. What did West say? When did I say I was going on a treasure hunt? Chen Zhao was speechless. What would happen then? If they said there were no treasures now, it would be too much of a blow to their enthusiasm. Forget it, I'll just hide it for now. At that time, he would just say that they were not strong enough to enter the depths. That would be great. Ah! Punkat heard a scream coming from Shayla's room. Punkat immediately jumped up and rushed into Shayla's bedroom. Miss Shara, what's wrong? Punkat hastily hugged Xia La, who was scratching her messy hair, and patted her back to soothe her. At this moment, Pankat suddenly felt that Xia La's strength seemed to have increased a little. She hugged herself a little too tightly. Miss Shala. Miss Shala? Suddenly, Pankar realized the problem. Suddenly, Pankat's palm was covered in a layer of silver radiance as he chanted an incantation. A heavy slap landed on Shayla's back. Ah! This scream was definitely not something a woman could make. Pankat broke free from the passionate hug and saw a pitch-black spirit crawl out of Xiaolei's body. Evil spirit of burning fire. Pankat's expression changed slightly. Evil spirits of burning fire were evil spirits formed by people who had been burned to death by flames. There were many types of evil spirits. Among them, those killed by the four elements were the most difficult to deal with. Of course, their numbers were also the rarest. The four elements of water, fire, earth and wind, under most circumstances, would directly wipe out a person's soul when they killed them. Therefore, there were very few who could retain their soul, and even fewer who could become evil spirits. The evil spirit of burning fire was like charcoal. Its spirit body was covered in cracks, and there was a faint glow of fire under the cracks. The evil spirit of burning fire suddenly pounced at Pankat. Pankat hurriedly raised his fist and punched the evil spirit's face, causing a splash of ashes and ashes. The evil spirit of burning fire screamed again. It landed on the wall, and its body melted into it. However, a patch of black immediately appeared on the wall. As the evil spirit of burning fire moved inside the wall, the blackness on the wall kept spreading. A moment later, the entire wall turned black. However, the evil spirit of burning fire did not continue to attack Pankat. The blackness spread out of the bedroom and disappeared. Pankat. Mr. Pankat, just now what was that? Did you see it? Pankat asked. On the wall. The blackness on the wall can move, Xiala said with a pale face. Pankat thought that Xiala had seen the evil spirit of burning fire. But it turned out that she had seen the path of the evil spirit of burning fire spreading inside the wall. Although it was his first time seeing the evil spirit of burning fire, he had read some records about it in magic books. The evil spirit of burning fire was an evil spirit that was formed after being burned to death. It would attach itself to a dead object and leave behind traces of ashes. If it attached itself to a living thing, the soul of the living thing would slowly be burned away and eventually dissipate like charcoal. However, the evil spirit of burning fire was an earthbound spirit. It would not move around and would only guard the place where it died. In other words, this evil spirit of burning fire had originally died here. However, he had checked the entire house today and did not find the existence of an evil spirit. So where did this evil spirit of burning fire come from? Mr. Pankat, what's the situation now? The situation is a bit tricky, Pankat said. How is it tricky? The evil spirit just now was very powerful and very troublesome. Can't you do anything? If it was an ordinary evil spirit, I could still do something. But this kind of evil spirit, I can only ask my teacher for help. Your teacher? You have a teacher? Of course, I'm a spiritualist, of course I have a teacher, Pankat said matter-of-factly. But before that, let's leave this house first, Pankat said matter-of-factly. Pankat felt that something was wrong. Xiaola had said that she had been disturbed by illusions before. However, the evil spirit of burning fire did not seem to have the ability to use illusions on the living. The evil spirit of burning fire was an evil spirit with astonishing destructive power, and it was cruel and crazy. They did not like to beat around the bush, and they were very straightforward when it came to killing and arson. However, the evil spirit of burning fire in the house really did not make people feel safe. They should leave this place first. Chapter 1444. Early the next morning, Pankat and Shara went straight to Pankat's teacher's house. Mr. Shan, are you there? Pankat stood in front of his teacher's house and shouted. Shara looked at the building in front of her. Does your teacher live in a place like this? Yes, is there a problem? Don't you think this house is too old? The life of a spiritualist isn't as good as you think, Pankat said. Pankat still had his main job. Exorcism was only his side job. However, Most of the older generation of spiritualists treated exorcism as their main job. However, for spiritualists, unless they were famous spiritualists who had appeared on TV, there were very few who could earn a lot of money. Occasionally, they would meet a big client and be lucky enough to make tens of thousands of dollars. Most of the time, however, they only made a few $1,000s or less. Is your teacher very powerful? Shara asked. More powerful than me, Pancat said. And he solved the same problem as you in the past. Just then the door opened. When Pancat saw Sean open the door, he was stunned. Pancat, why are you looking for me so early in the morning? What are you waiting for? You, Mr. Sean? What's the matter? Sean looked at Pancat impatiently. Punkart stared blankly at Sean. Sean was less than 40 years old this year. Usually, Sean wore an old and outdated black suit. But today, Sean was dressed neatly and had even changed into a brand new suit. Moreover, the messy beard on his face had been shaved clean. This made Punkart think that he had mistaken Sean for someone else. The current Shaoan was a far cry from his impression of his teacher. Teacher, are you going out? No, I'm just going to class, Sean said. Class? What class? At Nosilla Church. Is it a class from the church? No, it's a magic training course organized by the Supernatural Organization. It's a public course, Sean said. What supernatural organization? Why don't I know anything about it? Is it a newly formed supernatural organization? Idiot, they've been around longer than you. But they usually keep a low profile. Sean rolled his eyes. And everyone in the organization is very powerful. No matter how powerful I am, can I be more powerful than you, teacher? I'm nothing in their eyes. Shaoan rolled his eyes. All right, do you want to attend the class together? Can I go too? That's an open class. Xiala looked at the conversation between the teacher and student, who seemed to have forgotten about her. She immediately pulled Punkat. Is this your girlfriend? She's pretty, what's her name? No, teacher, this is my client. Her name is Shayla. We are here to seek your help. Asking for my help? A burning fire evil spirit has appeared in Miss Xiala's house. I can't solve it, so I can only ask for your help, teacher. I see. Sean nodded. How much is the reward? $20,000. I want half. Sure. Pancat nodded. In any case, Sean would be the main force, and he would be the assistant. He had no objections to this arrangement. Let's go to the class first. I don't want to miss this public class, Shaoan said. Teacher, do you come to this class every day? No, it's only one class a month, so I can't miss it. Then can I go? Shayla asked. Of course, Shaoan said. Let's go. Nosilla Church isn't far from here. Teacher, will we be chased out by the supernatural organization if we dress so casually? I don't have any requirements for clothes. Then why are you dressed so formally? I want to leave a good impression. If there's a chance in the future, I might be able to become a member. When the three of them arrived at Nosilla Church, they found that there were already more than 20 people there. Pancat recognized some of them. They were all spiritualists. A few more people came one after another, and there were about 30 people in the church listening to the lecture. After a while, the people from the supernatural organization finally arrived. Xiala saw that the person on the stage was actually a young girl. From her appearance, he couldn't tell if she was over 20 years old. That's the supernatural organization? Shayla whispered. She looks very young. Shayla wasn't the only one who had doubts. Many people in the church had the same question. Jalanash stood on the makeshift podium and held a microphone. Hello, everyone. I'm a member of the supernatural organization Jalanash. At the same time, she raised her right hand with her back facing the crowd. Maybe some of you have doubts about my power. This golden ring should be enough to explain it. A few people in the church exclaimed in surprise, but more people did not know what was going on. Mr. Shaoan, what's the meaning of the golden ring on the girl's hand? Shayla asked. Does it mean she's married? Pancat teased. Even he thought it was a joke. That's one of the supernatural organization's magic power levels, Shaoan said solemnly. Oh, then is the gold a symbol of a certain level? Pancat's tone was still frivolous. Yes, it's the symbol of the highest level. Then the organization's levels must not be strict. A little girl actually got the highest level, Previously, Magic Shell went to do the magic power level assessment. She got a blue ring. She's only ranked 2nd. What? How is that possible? Magic Shell is such a powerful spiritualist. Does the supernatural organization's magic power level only have high, middle, and low levels? No, there are 5 levels, Xiaoen said. Does their magic power level assessment have any authority? Back then Magic Shell also questioned it. He even used his past achievements as proof, and asked the supernatural organization to give him a higher level. Of course, the supernatural organization wasn't happy, so Magic Shell fought them and was thrown out. He was surrounded by the supernatural organization. No, Magic Shell said he was thrown out by a girl in black. Magic Shell has a lot of battle experience. How could he lose? Magic Shell said it himself. He said that the girl who stopped him seemed to be an extremely rare necromancer. That girl only used 10 seconds to defeat him. Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version. Chapter 1445. In an instant, the entire church fell silent. Shara was surprised to find that she couldn't make a sound. It wasn't just her. Sean and Punkat beside her couldn't make a sound either. At this time, Jalanash, who was on the podium, spoke. All right, I hope everyone can be quiet. After all, I don't want to waste time here. Jalanash didn't want to give these spiritualists any lessons. It was a complete waste of time. She might as well go back and study a spell. One morning was enough for her to study a small spell. Jalanash then removed the silence spell. Although the silence spell wasn't an elemental spell, but a spiritual spell, Jalanash still studied it. It was mainly used to deal with spiritualists who were large in number and slightly weaker. For example, most of the spiritualists in front of her needed to use incantations to cast spells. Once they were hit by the silence spell, they wouldn't be able to cast spells. However, they were really weak. Most of them only had rank E magic power. There was only one person present who was rank D. Jalanash removed the silence spell. There was a small buzz from below. Some people couldn't help but discuss it. However, this didn't affect Jalanash's speech. Mr. Punkat, Mr. Sean, what happened just now? Why can't I make a sound? Shara couldn't help but ask in a low voice. Silence spell. Simply put, it's a spell that prevents you from making a sound. Punkat's understanding of the silence spell was limited to this. But this girl is really scary. There were more than 30 spiritualists here, but she actually muted us all. A level 70 main character using an area of effect skill and hitting dozens of level 10 newbies within a range wasn't really anything to be proud of. However, for these newbies who thought that there were only level 10 or level 20 characters in this world, suddenly encountering one? It was only natural for a main account of this level to be shocked. After all, most of the people they encountered were at the same level as them, or just slightly stronger. Jalanash appeared quite confident on the podium. She didn't just talk about magic, but also exorcism and exorcism. After all, she was talking to a bunch of newbies. Jalanash was qualified to be their teacher, whether it was in terms of strength or experience. These people weren't just low-leveled. They had never been to high-level maps, let alone encountered high-level monsters. Punkat and Sean were listening with great interest. To them, Jalanash's lecture was like a holy scripture. Every content was enlightening and enlightening, allowing them to see the light. Miss Jalanash, do the monsters you speak of really exist? I don't think a fused spirit is a monster. I believe at least a quarter of you have seen one before. Of course, the fused spirit you've seen shouldn't be too strong. I bet it has only devoured a dozen of its kind, Jalanash said. So you have, Miss Jalanash. I've seen stronger gathered spirits, but even I don't have the confidence to deal with those twisted monsters. Jalanash said. Also, if you encounter something like this, you must destroy it, so I can't show you. But there's a lady with me today. She should be the strongest spirit. If you're interested, I can ask her to give you a lesson. Everyone below had disapproving looks on their faces. Spiritual body? They had indeed seen powerful spirit bodies before. And some of them had also seen or heard of aggregated spirits. In their eyes, the converged spirit was already the most powerful and terrifying spirit body. But now, Jalanash said that a spirit had come with her. Since they were able to walk with her, They were either spirit bodies that she summoned or spirit bodies that were content with their lot. How scary was a spirit like that? Then Miss Jalanash, please open our eyes. Jalanash's lips curled up. She had been waiting for these people to say that. Miss Pamela, it's time for you to go. A chill spread into the church, and everyone couldn't help but shiver. It's so cold. It's a shiver from the soul. Sean's expression became serious. Is it a frost demon? Pancat asked in surprise. At this moment, a spirit body descended from the old and cracked ceiling. Only Shayla, who was an ordinary person, couldn't see it. Everyone else saw Pamela's arrival. What kind of spirit is that? I've never seen it before. Is it an evil spirit formed from a frozen person? Miss Jalanash, do you want us to fight this spirit? A spiritualist asked. We can go to the empty space outside. Then what if we accidentally hurt or kill this lady? After all, spirits are weak. This spiritualist was clearly very confident in his abilities. Of course, there was a hint of malice in his tone. He had been unwilling to be muted by a little girl like Jalanash. But he had to admit that Jalanash was strong. He didn't think he could beat her. But he felt that this spirit was easy to bully. At least, that was what he thought. If he couldn't beat Jalanash herself, then he would get back at her contract spirit. He didn't know that Pamela wasn't Jalanash's contract spirit. It wouldn't even be an exaggeration for Jalanash to call Pamela teacher. After all, Jalanash had learned the muting spell from Pamela. And Pamela wasn't a spirit body, at least not now. She was a banshee, the only banshee in the world right now. Of course, after the second batch of 30 or so banshees finished their transformation, she wouldn't be alone anymore. Pamela floated to the empty space outside the church. The spiritualist stood before her. Miss Jalanash, is there anything I can pay attention to? If there's a need, I can retract the powerful spells to prevent serious injuries. Of course, the spiritualist wasn't that kind. He didn't plan on stopping. Even though he said that to Jalanash, he could also say that the spells he'd just used were normal spells. No, do whatever you want, Jalanash said coolly. Miss Pamela, please be careful too. Pamela had a faint smile. Of course, I understand. I'll be careful. Careful. They weren't here to kill, so they couldn't kill here. Even though they weren't very patient with these stupid and ignorant spiritualists, they still suppressed their impulses. Then I'll attack that. Miss Pamela. Chapter 1446. This spiritualist was clearly very confident in his own abilities. Spirit ring. The spiritualist spun his finger, and a ring of light appeared above Pamela's head. The ring of light descended, trapping him with all his might. The spiritualist's lips curved. This spirit ring couldn't be avoided. Moreover, it would even cause the spirit body to burn. Struggle. The more you struggled, the tighter the ring would be. Bang! Pamela spread her arms and broke the spirit ring. Everyone's eyeballs were about to fall out of their sockets. Was this even possible? It was formed by magic. For spirits, it was like putting a laser on a human's body. But Pamela broke the spirit ring directly. Pamela's face was calm. It's my turn, right? The spiritualist on the other side instantly exploded. Danger! 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 It was an unprecedented sense of danger. Although most spiritualists weren't prophetic, there were quite a number of spiritualists who had the ability to predict danger. It was created when their magic awakened. Pamela pointed with her finger, and a wave of cold air exploded. Even though they weren't facing Pamela, the surrounding spiritualists still felt the bone-chilling coldness. The spiritualist facing Pamela had cast a defensive spell on himself, but he was instantly frozen into a block of ice. What? Someone died? Damn, the evil spirit from the supernatural organization killed someone. That's too much. Jalanash's face twitched. She walked to Pamela. Lady Pamela, did you kill him? No, Pamela said calmly. I just froze his soul. He's not dead. He's not dead. I can't feel his aura or magic at all. Is he really not dead? The other spiritualists were suspicious. After all, he had been frozen into a lump of ice. How could he still be alive? Who were they kidding? He'll be fine after a few hours in the sun, Pamela said. On the other hand, Xiaola had been watching the entire battle. But she only saw the spiritualist's one-man show. She couldn't see Pamela. However, she still saw the spiritualist frozen into an ice cube. What happened? Shara asked in a low voice. Punkat briefly recounted what had happened just now. That spirit is terrifying, Punkat gulped. It's even more terrifying than the evil spirit of scorching fire. They aren't even on the same level, Sean said. If that Lady Pamela really makes a move, I'm afraid none of us here will survive. That's scary. Is this spirit a contract evil spirit of someone from the supernatural organization? Everyone's fear and curiosity towards the supernatural organization increased. Miss Jalanash, Lady Pamela, may I ask if you know anything about the evil spirit of fire? Sean asked. He had fought against the burning fire evil spirit a few years ago, but it was more or less luck that he was able to destroy the burning fire evil spirit. On one hand, they had made ample preparations. When the evil spirit of the burning flame was unconscious, they had 2 helpers, which was why they were able to successfully destroy the evil spirit of the burning flame. But this time, Pang Carter had invited him, so he didn't have much confidence. So he wanted to see if Jolene Nash and Pamela had something special to say. Evil spirit of scorching fire? Jolene didn't have much experience with spirits. She was an elemental witch, so she was better at high-level battles. Of course, this didn't mean that she didn't know how to deal with evil spirits. It was just that when she dealt with evil spirits, she would use her ultimate skills to kill them instantly. There are a few evil spirits of scorching fire in the evil spirit organization, Pamela mumbled. What? Sean didn't hear clearly. Nothing. It's not hard to deal with the evil spirit of scorching fire with water spells. What if they don't know water spells? Sean asked. China's Taoist charms are very effective against evil spirits of scorching fire. There are many Taoist charms for sale at 558 Downey Street. I recommend the charms from the Maoshan sect or Dragon Tiger Mountain sect. As for charms from other unknown sects, the quality and effects might not be as good as expected, Pamela said. Among them, the Clear Water Charm and Demon Suppression Charm are the best choices. But these 2 charms are expensive and require a lot of magic power to activate. Based on your magic power level, you can only activate 2 charms at most. If you miss, you'll be in danger. Of course, there are also the Breaking Thunder Charm and the 9 Pure Heart Charm. These charms are also quite effective. The price is moderate, and they don't use a lot of magic power. They're the most cost-effective. There are also some. Pamela's explanation was very detailed, but the method she talked about was using external forces to get rid of the evil spirit of scorching fire, instead of using one's own power. If the spiritualist really had the power to get rid of the evil spirit, he wouldn't have asked her this question. Also, Pamela couldn't teach him magic here. Pamela didn't know what magic he was, or how much combat experience he had. So Pamela could only tell him the most appropriate method. While Pamela was explaining, many spiritualists were taking notes. Lady Pamela, I have a mission recently and encountered a corpse dog. I major in elemental thunder magic, but I can only use the most basic spells. Is there a safer way to get rid of this corpse dog? The biggest threat of the corpse dog is its mutated body. It's close to the strength of a lion or tiger, and it has a disease-causing corpse poison. At the same time, it's immune to voodoo and curses, as well as high resistance to spirits and fire. So it's very difficult for you to fight a corpse dog with your current power. But it's not absolute. The nature of a corpse dog is actually similar to that of a dog. After all, they were dogs when they were alive, so you can try to get rid of them with some traps. Also, remember to bring some glutinous rice. If you're scratched or bitten by a corpse dog, you can use the glutinous rice to detoxify and suppress the effects of the corpse poison. If the poison is too deep, you'll need the church's holy water or holy light magic to purify you. Just then, the others started to check their temperatures. Some asked Pamela, and some asked Jalanash. There were all kinds of questions, and the 2 of them tried their best to answer them. That's amazing, Sean said in shock. They seem to have encountered many scary things that we've heard about before, and they all know how to deal with them. The supernatural organization in Los Angeles was the organization, so most of the supernatural incidents in Los Angeles and the surrounding areas were handled by them. Many incidents were reported to them directly by the government. And most of the incidents reported to them by the government were dangerous supernatural incidents. It was completely different from the commissions ordinary people received. Naturally, the supernatural organization had a lot more experience. Missions that seemed difficult to ordinary people were just normal to the supernatural organization. Chapter 1447. The morning classes were over. Pancat and Xiao-In were reluctant to leave. They'd learned a lot of things, including some monsters they'd only heard of in legends. But Jalanash and Pamela could explain how to deal with them. Of course, some monsters couldn't be defeated just because they knew how to deal with them. Jalanash and Pamela could only provide them with a possibility and a plan. They weren't guaranteed to win. And because they were in different positions, they saw things differently. With their strength, no matter how meticulous they were, it was something that only they could do. Others might not be able to do it. Pancat and Xiao-In left with Shara. Then Pancat began to explain the situation to Xiao-In. Are you sure that house hasn't been on fire before? Xiao-In asked, confused. That house should have been built a long time ago, Shara said. There shouldn't have been a fire in the last 20 years. When I bought it, the contract didn't say that the house had been on fire before. America's real estate sales were relatively strict. At least the laws in this area were more complete. When a house was sold, the contract would state the construction of the house, the use of the land, when the house was built, how many times it had been repaired, and whether it had been attacked by fire or water. Once the buyer found out about something wrong with the house, the buyer could ask the agent or the seller for a refund unconditionally. Shara's new house had been bought from an agent, and as the agent, it was impossible for them not to investigate. Shara also trusted the agent when she bought the house. After all, it was a relatively well-known company. That was why she didn't suspect anything. After all, the agent was the most concerned about the use of the house. If something went wrong, they'd be the ones with the biggest headache. So it was impossible for Shara not to know that someone had been burned in the house. Also, the evil spirit of burning fire can't control people, nor can it use illusions on the living. Is there a second evil spirit in that house? Pancat wondered. He'd had his suspicions before, and now Xiao-In had the same suspicions. Is it possible that the evil spirit of burning fire was controlled by someone? Xiao-In raised a new point of view. The evil spirit of burning fire had either died in the house, but from what Shara said, it didn't seem like the house had burned anyone. Then it was possible that someone had controlled the evil spirit of burning fire and deliberately placed it in the house. If that was the case, then it would be even more troublesome. After all, if a spiritualist had really placed the scorching fire evil spirit in that house, then not only would they have to deal with the scorching fire evil spirit, but they would also have to deal with an unknown spiritualist. There was one more thing that puzzled Pancat and Sean. Why would Shara enter 558 Downey Street? It was impossible for ordinary people to find that place, unless a spiritualist brought her in. But Shara had said that she had found 558 Downey Street by herself while shopping. This ruled out the possibility of someone bringing her in. Furthermore, both of them confirmed that Shara was indeed an ordinary person, and not a witch. In this world, there was no such thing as coincidence, finding a certain mysterious area, or being blessed by the heavens with outstanding talent. 0 was 0, and 1 was 1. There was no ambiguity in it. While it's still early, let's go to 558 Downey Street. What they wanted to confirm now was whether Shala could really find 558 Downey Street. The three of them drove to Downey Street and let Shara walk in front. Miss Shara, please lead the way. Find 558 Downey Street. When Shara heard the two say that ordinary people couldn't find 558 Downey Street, she didn't really believe it. Because she had found it and even bought something. She had a good memory, and she could recognize the numbers of all the shops. She didn't believe that she would go the wrong way this time. But that was the truth. When she searched for 558 Downey Street again, she realized that she couldn't find the number no matter how hard she tried. Damn, what went wrong? Shara walked back and forth on Downey Street 3 or 4 times, but still couldn't find it. She couldn't find it? How is that possible? Did the shop move away? Shara asked, confused. No, it's still there. Pancat shook his head. Just then, Shara suddenly saw a few familiar figures. Wasn't that Chen Zhao, Fei Lai, and their 2 children? It seemed that they were also shopping here. Hi, Mr. Chen, Ms. Fei Lai. Chen Zhao looked up and saw Shara. Then he looked at Pancat and Xiao in behind her. There seemed to be magic waves on them, but they weren't strong. Miss Shara, are you in trouble? They're my friends. Real friends. Chen Zhao hugged Zhilin, but he still looked at Pancat and Xiao in warily. He thought that the 2 had threatened Shara and wanted to do something to her. Shara was forced to tell the truth. Real friends. Shara understood what Chen Zhao was trying to say. Shara, why don't you come to my house? Chen Zhao and I moved. Thank you for saving me from more pain last time. I haven't had the chance to thank you properly, Fei Lai said. I still have something to do. Shara turned her head hesitantly and looked at Pancat and Xiao in. Miss Fei Lai, why don't you go stay at a friend's house for a few days? Pancat asked. We'll take care of the rest. Call me. Is that okay? No problem. Don't worry. Mr. Chen, Miss Fei Lai. Is it convenient for me to stay there for a few days? No problem. You can stay as long as you want. Aunt Shara, Zhilin's birthday is coming up. Can you wait for Zhilin's birthday party before you leave? Zhilin looked at Shara with watery eyes. Zhilin, when's your birthday? Shara liked Zhilin the moment she saw her. She wanted to give birth to such a cute princess in the future. Chen Zhao was relieved that she wasn't being threatened. It seemed that he'd thought too much. If she was being threatened, Shara wouldn't be walking on the street like this. Shara followed Chen Zhao's family to Mingyue Villa. Shara already knew that Chen Zhao was rich. After all, Chen Zhao had paid her $200,000 for less than 48 hours of work. However, when she saw Mingyue Villa and Mingyue Beach, as well as the yacht parked at the pier, she was still shocked. Mingyue Villa was too beautiful, and its scale was beyond her imagination. Please remember the original domain name of this book, mobile version. Chapter 1448. She'd thought that Mirror Lake Villa was good enough. When Mirror Lake Villa had been destroyed by the witch's tropical storm, Shara had felt it was a pity. However, her imagination had been limited by poverty. Living here was really a top-notch enjoyment. It wasn't physical. For a normal person, 3 meals a day and a bed were enough to satisfy a person's physical needs. What she truly enjoyed was mental. Walking to the courtyard, she could see the surging waves. She only needed to take the elevator to the beach. Sunlight, sand, and waves all belonged to her family. Shara held a goblet of red wine and leaned against the railing with Fei Lai. They enjoyed the wine and chatted. Shara had never tasted such delicious red wine before. She hadn't heard of the nameless wine, but she knew that it was definitely expensive. In the shallow waters, Shara saw Chen Zhao with little Zhilin and Larissa. Zhilin could swim, but she wasn't completely used to the waves. Seawater was more buoyant than fresh water, but because of the changing tides, the waves were uneven, so little Zhilin would still choke. Of course, she still swam with all her might. Chen Zhao stood beside Zhilin and didn't interfere with her practice. Larissa's belly was being dragged by Chen Zhao. Her limbs were paddling randomly in the water. However, she clearly hadn't mastered swimming yet. In this aspect, little Larissa couldn't compare to little Zhilin. Back then, Chen Zhao hadn't taught little Zhilin at all. It was as if she was born to swim. Larissa, on the other hand, couldn't. As soon as Chen Zhao let go, she would sink. Of course, the environment in Mirror Lake was different from the waves. Larissa was like her sister. She also liked to play in the water. Dad, look. Zhilin suddenly cried out in excitement and pointed not far away. Chen Zhao looked in Zhilin's direction and saw a few bottlenose dolphins leaping into the waves ahead. There were 6 of them. 2 of them were bigger, around 2 meters long. 4 of them were young dolphins. This should be a small dolphin family. The 2 bigger dolphins were probably the children of the other 4. Most dolphins were very curious and friendly to humans. Killer whales belonged to the dolphin category, not the whales that everyone thought. Moreover, they had a very high IQ. People's impression of dolphins was that they were naughty and occasionally helped shipwreck victims. The dolphins had clearly noticed Chen Zhao and his 2 kids too. They immediately surrounded them. The two leading dolphins, the father and mother, let out childlike cries and swam toward Chenjiao, little Jerlin, and little Larissa without any explanation. When it reached the three, it slowed down. Chenjiao didn't sense any malice, but he was still careful. However, Chenjiao's worries were unnecessary. He could hear their voices saying, "Come on my back, come on my back." They kept repeating the same words. Little Jerlin, hold their dorsal fins. Just then, Chenjiao grabbed a dolphin's dorsal fin, and it started swimming towards the shore. Little Jerlin was also pulled to the shore by the dolphin. The dolphin father and mother had obviously misunderstood. They thought that Chenjiao, little Jerlin, and little Larissa were refugees. Chenjiao was touched. Inexplicably, he was moved by her words. The four little dolphins behind also followed their father and mother. Just then, Chenjiao felt the 5 tiger generals approach. Chenjiao's eyes hardened. He immediately sent a warning to the 5 tiger generals with little world. Go away. Don't hurt this family. The 5 tiger generals didn't even have time to show themselves before they were chased away. Actually, they didn't plan to hurt the dolphin family. Their intelligence wasn't low now. They could tell good from bad. They just wanted to come and play with Chenjiao. Fine. Chenjiao had misunderstood them. But the dolphin family would inevitably be frightened. Chenjiao didn't want to chase this kind family away. The father and mother sent Chenjiao and little Jerlin to the beach directly. Then they moved their bodies with difficulty, trying to return to the sea. Just then, a wave came and pushed them a few more meters onto the beach. They seemed to be struggling. Chenjiao immediately went up and pulled the father's tail, trying to pull it back into the sea. Little Jerlin also came up and helped pull the mother back into the sea. Chenjiao smiled bitterly. He was carrying little Larissa, so he couldn't pull both of them at the same time. Little Jerlin clearly couldn't move. Chenjiao secretly cast a spell and used countless threads to wrap around the mother's tail. Then, the mother and daughter pulled the father and mother back into the sea together. Just then, Feilai and Shara each came down with a bucket. Chenjiao was stunned. Then he realized that their buckets were filled with fish. "Chen, tell them to come back," Feilai called. Chenjiao didn't leave when he saw the parents return to the sea. He walked to the shallow area and clapped his hands. "Thank you for saving us. This is our gift." Shara's expression was strange. Could the dolphins understand? However, she did not expect that the dolphins would really come over. They weren't afraid at all and swam to Chenjiao's side. Feilai and Shara came over too. Then they started taking the fish out of the buckets. The water was just right, not even up to Chenjiao's waist. The dolphins wouldn't be stranded at this level. Little Jerlin also came over to help split the fish. Hee hee. Daddy, kiss me, kiss me, kiss me. What's a kiss? Did they name the dolphin so soon? Little Jerlin was playing with a little dolphin about 80 centimeters long. The little dolphin seemed to like Jerlin's hug too. Shara looked at the family with indescribable envy. After all, not everyone had such an experience. Suddenly, Shara saw a huge fin appear in the sea. Shara's expression changed drastically. Shark, shark. Run. Shark. The dolphin family was frightened too. They also noticed the shark's fin and hurriedly ran toward the beach. At the same time, they cried out as if to warn Chenjiao's family. Old Guan was here. He was here to fight for Chenjiao's favor. Shara realized that Chenjiao's family didn't plan to run at all. Then she saw a great white shark rush into the shallow water. Its huge body made people's scalps go numb. It was too big. Frighteningly big. Its bloody mouth was less than 2 meters away from them. Chapter 1449. In Shara's eyes, the great white shark could swallow Jerlin whole with just a twist. But the shark didn't. Half of its body was stuck in the water, and its tail kept swinging. Chenjiao also looked at Guan Laoda in annoyance. "You came here to fight for attention, and got yourself stranded. Are you stupid?" Chenjiao threw a few fish into Guan Laoda's mouth. They weren't even enough to fill his teeth. Then he walked behind Guan Laoda and dragged him back to the deep water. The dolphin family was still a little frightened. Shara was dumbfounded. That great white shark was their family's pet? "You're not afraid of sharks?" "That's a great white shark," Shara asked. "Why should we be afraid of sharks?" Jerlin asked, confused. In her eyes, any family pet could be trusted. Why should they be afraid? I'm a beast tamer, Chen Zhao said casually. Shara really believed him. After all, great white sharks were infamous. If such an existence could be tamed, what else couldn't be tamed? Soon, the dolphin family swam over and started playing with Chen Zhao's family again. Soon, Jerlin could already ride on the dolphins and let them play with her. Under the night sky, Punkat and Sean entered Shara's house. The lights were off in the entire house. Both of them had rich experience in exorcism. Evil spirits usually liked to wander in the dark. If there was light in the house, they would actively hide or destroy the light source. Suddenly the two heard movement. It came from Shara's bedroom. Coming. The two stood up at the same time. Cautiously arriving outside Shara's bedroom, Punkat gently pushed open the door. There was a woman sitting at the dresser. Miss Shara. Seeing the figure, Punkat subconsciously thought it was Shara. No, it's not Miss Shara. Sean shook his head. He was more rational now. Punkat also came back to his senses. Right, Shara had gone to a friend's house. Why would she be here? Isn't that an evil spirit of fire? As expected, there's more than one evil spirit of fire pestering Miss Shara, Punkat whispered. Punkat said in a low voice. Then the one who created the illusion should be this evil spirit. The figure was slowly combing his long hair with a comb. Punkat held a handful of magic phosphor in his hand, while Sean took out a talisman. The charm was bought at 558 Downey Street today. This charm could be activated with just a little bit of magic power, and it had decent lethality. Sean gestured to Punkat and began the countdown. 3, 2, 1. The two of them rushed in at the same time. Punkarter shouted loudly and scattered the magic phosphor in his hand. Crash! The magic phosphorescence burst into flames, but when the flames disappeared, so did the ghostly figure. Where's the evil spirit? Punkat asked curiously. He didn't believe that a handful of magic phosphor could destroy that evil spirit. At this time, Punkat noticed that a comb had appeared in Shaoen's hand. He was slowly combing his hair. Pang Carter's hair stood on end as he hurriedly retreated. At the same time, he quickly took out a handful of magic phosphor and sprayed it at Sean. Crash! Ah! Sean screamed in pain. Although magical phosphor was mainly used to attack spirits and cast some spells, it still had a certain lethality to humans. Teacher Sean! Punkat didn't see any spirit fly out of Sean's body, and the scream he heard just now was Sean's. Just as Punkat stepped forward to help Sean up, someone suddenly patted his shoulder. Punkat, what are you doing? Sean's voice came from behind. Punkat froze for a moment and turned around to find Sean standing behind him. He looked down and saw that Sean, who should have been accidentally injured by his magic phosphor, had disappeared. And Sean, who was standing behind him, was unharmed. Punkat immediately retreated and looked at Sean in horror. You. Punkat, what are you doing? Sean asked in confusion. Are you really Sean? Of course I am. What the hell are you doing? Punkat's eyes flickered. What was going on? Did he fall for an illusion? Or was Sean possessed by an evil spirit? It should be known that spiritualists would almost never be possessed. If a spiritualist was possessed by an evil spirit, the evil spirit would be extremely powerful. Furthermore, a spiritualist who was possessed by an evil spirit would become extremely terrifying. Suddenly, Sean saw that there was a comb in Punkat's hair. During the day, Punkat had told him that this comb had traces of magic on it. Sean saw that Punkat's expression was a little strange. Evil spirit, retreat. Sean immediately cast out a talisman. Punkat's expression was very strange. The talisman landed on Punkat's forehead. Punkat's body went limp and he fell to the ground. Sean heaved a sigh of relief. He walked over to Punkat and flipped him over. Suddenly, Sean saw a figure on the ground. He turned around and saw Punkat. Punkat was holding a baseball bat high in his hands. You! Sean looked back again and saw Punkat, who should have been killed by the talisman. Punkat's figure was nowhere to be seen. The talisman was stuck on the wall. Oh no! Duong! Punkat's baseball bat was already swinging at Sean's head. Sean covered his head and fell to the ground, but his consciousness was still very clear. Sean kicked Punkat's calf with both feet, causing Punkat to fall heavily to the ground. Punkat's head hit the ground, and he immediately woke up. Sean, what happened to you? You hit me, bastard. Sean's face was pale. At this moment, his head and face were covered in blood. Me? I hit you. Pancat looked at Sean in surprise. No, you've been possessed by an evil spirit. No, you've been possessed by an evil spirit. I haven't, you've been possessed by an evil spirit. Impossible, my consciousness is very clear. You're the one who's been controlled. The two of them were blaming each other, but after arguing for a while, they realized that perhaps both of them had been blinded by an illusion, causing them to kill each other. Pankat's injuries were still fine, but Sean's head had been hit by the baseball bat. Call an ambulance. If we don't call an ambulance, I'll die, Sean said weakly. At this moment, Sean's injuries were very serious. Pancat picked up the phone and dialed the emergency number. But a strange laughter came from the phone. Pancat was startled and quickly threw the phone away. What's wrong? Damn it, the illusion still hasn't disappeared. Pankat's face was solemn. Sean's expression also changed slightly. No matter what appears in front of you, no matter what I become, don't make a move. Maybe we're still in an illusion. Chapter 1450. Damn it, where did I go wrong? Pankat's expression was grave. Sean also did not understand when he had fallen for the illusion. Both of them were at a loss. Illusions were not something that could be easily used, and it was even more impossible to trick the other party without them realizing it. The terrifying thing about illusions was that it was very difficult to distinguish between real and fake. It was like seeing a person brandishing a knife at you in an illusion. You knew that it was fake, but how could you completely ignore this kind of attack? Sean held his head and leaned against the corner in pain. Pancat suddenly saw a strange smile appear on Sean's face. Sean's body was fusing into the wall. Illusion. Illusion. This is an illusion. Pancat kept telling himself that it was an illusion. Do you still think that it's an illusion? My stupid disciple. Sean's smile suddenly became strange. I've wanted to kill you for a long time, but I never had the chance. Now the chance has finally come. Kill me? Why? Pancat suddenly lost control of his emotions. Why? Because I'm your teacher, but you're even more outstanding than me. I hate people who are more outstanding than me, especially when they're my disciple. It's fake, it's fake. Pancat kept telling himself that in his heart, but his consciousness was becoming chaotic. At the same time, Sean, who had been leaning against the wall and panting, suddenly looked at Pancat with a strange expression on his face. That sinister and strange smile made his disciple feel strange and terrifying. Teacher, do you really think it's because I fell for an illusion? That's just an excuse. I deliberately attacked you, and then blamed it on an illusion. A smile appeared on Pankat's face. Why? You know this is an illusion. Damn it. Sean immediately closed his eyes. Illusion? Do you really think that someone could cast an illusion on them without them knowing? Pancat sneered at Sean. Why did you do that? Because you've been hiding something from me. Every time you teach me magic, you'd *mn bastard. And every time I ask for your help, you always ask for a cut. You greedy bastard. This time, I finally don't have to give you a cut anymore, Pancat said with a smile. Sean hid his hands behind his back and quietly took out an enchanted dagger. Reason told Sean that this was all fake, all an illusion. However, Shaowen's thoughts were already in a state of chaos. It seemed as if Pancat really was going to kill him. Puncarter pounced at Sean, who pulled out his dagger and stabbed it into Puncarter's chest. Punkat's eyes widened as he looked down at his own chest, then looked up at Sean in shock. Finally, Pankat's body slumped to the ground. Shaowen stood up unsteadily, but in the next moment, he lost all his strength and fell to the ground. Suddenly Pankart, who should have been dead, pulled out his dagger and purposely splashed his blood. Along with the blood, the last bit of his magic phosphor was also splattered. The moment the magic phosphor exploded, Pancat slashed the wooden comb on the dressing table with his dagger. The wooden comb was split in half. Everything had returned to its original calm. Pancat picked up the phone with much difficulty. Here. We need an ambulance here. Address. Addresses. After all, his teacher was his teacher. He had found the reason so quickly. The moment Sean stabbed the dagger into Pancat, he told him the reason. It was all because of the wooden comb. It was also the most suspicious thing they had come into contact with today. It was not the work of an evil spirit, but the wooden comb was a magic tool. They had made a mistake when they investigated the wooden comb before. They had discovered that the wooden comb had the aura of magic, but there was no trace of an evil spirit, so they should have noticed it. The wooden comb would cause illusions to those who came into contact with it. There was no evil spirit in this house. The so-called burning evil spirit was just their imagination. When Sean stabbed the dagger into Punkett's chest, he deliberately missed it and said something about the comb. Sean realized that there was something wrong with the comb, but he was trapped in an illusion at the time, so it was impossible for him to destroy the comb. Only by waking Punkat up from the illusion could they destroy the wooden comb. It had to be said that this was a very risky move. Fortunately, they succeeded. Sean, teacher, are you okay? Punkat sat on the ground with difficulty. Sean closed his eyes and lay on the ground. I'm fine, but I don't dare open my eyes. I'm afraid of falling into an illusion again. I've already destroyed the comb, Punkat said. What's the deal with this comb? The ringing of the phone woke Shara up. She looked at the time and saw that it was past 2 in the morning. Shara reluctantly picked up the phone. Hello, are you Miss Shara? Yes, I am. Do you know Punkat and Sean? I do. They are in the hospital now. Hospital? What happened? Xiaola was startled, and her drowsiness had receded quite a bit. They were in your house and then attacked each other. What's going on? That's what the police want to know. Where are you now? Do you have time to talk? I'm not in downtown Los Angeles. I'm afraid I'll have to wait until tomorrow to return to Los Angeles. Well, I hope you can come to the police station tomorrow. Shara's thoughts were a little chaotic. She vaguely sensed that it was likely that Punkat and Sean were hallucinating like her. And then they killed each other. The next day, Shara hurried to the police station and communicated with the police. Of course, it was just a simple statement. After all, she was not at the scene at the time, so there was no suspicion. In the statement, she claimed that she was only temporarily lending the house to Punkat and Sean for them to stay in her house. Although the police were puzzled by the fight between Punkat and Sean, they did not make things too difficult for Shara. Shara went to the hospital to see Punkat and Sean. Mr. Punkat, what's going on? We miscalculated. It's your comb. It's an evil magic tool. Punkat was very weak now because he had been stabbed in the chest. Although it did not hit a vital point, he had lost a lot of blood. Although he was saved, he was still very weak. Both Sean and I were under an illusion, and then we fought each other. That comb? I'm going to destroy that comb now. Mobile version. Chapter 1451. Then, Xiaola came to Shaoen's ward, and he said the same thing. Xiaola quickly returned to her home. But no matter how she searched, she couldn't find the comb. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Xiaola came to the door and saw 2 policemen outside. Hello. Xiaola realized they were the 2 policemen who had taken her statement at the police station. Hello, Miss Xiaola. This morning, we took some things from your house for inspection and fingerprints. I'm sorry we didn't tell you beforehand. Now the things have been returned to the owner, one of the policemen said. Xiaola saw a small cardboard box behind the 2 policemen. If there's anything missing, please contact us. If we confirm that it was lost due to our negligence, we will compensate you according to the price. Thank you. Do you need us to help you move the box in? No, thank you. After the 2 policemen left, Xiaola moved the box back to her house. The moment she opened the box, Xiaola's expression changed. Because Punkat and Sean had told her that the wooden comb should have been broken. But now the comb was placed perfectly in the box, wrapped in a plastic bag. Xiaola was shocked and quickly took a few steps back. Suddenly, Xiaola felt something behind her. She turned around and saw the 2 policemen standing at the door. They had a strange smile on their faces. Why are you here? The 2 policemen slowly raised their heads. Their pupils rolled up, and they still had that strange smile on their faces. Xiaola realized something was wrong. The 2 policemen had also touched the comb. Then the 2 policemen pulled out their guns. But they didn't aim at Xiaola. Instead, they aimed at their own temples. Bang! Blood and brain matter splattered in front of Xiaola. Xiaola was so scared that she lost her mind. She sat on the ground and screamed in fear. But the next moment, Xiaola raised her head again and realized the two policemen's bodies were gone. There wasn't even a trace of blood at the door. Illusion. The hallucination came again. Xiaola was about to collapse. She ran out of the house. She didn't know where she was going or where she should hide. She just wanted to escape this place, escape this nightmarish home. Xiaola fled in all directions in a panic. But in the community, everything was peaceful and peaceful. It was completely out of place with the terrified and uneasy Shara. Shara also calmed down a little. At this moment, a ball rolled past Shayla and onto the sidewalk. Shayla turned around and saw a little girl standing there. "Sister, can you help me pick it up?" Just as Xiaola was about to walk over to pick up the ball, she suddenly heard the sound of a car braking. Xiaola turned her head and saw a car coming towards her. "Hey Chen, did you know? Sherlock's in the hospital." Chen Zhao was stunned when he received For's call. Shara had just left his house today. What happened to her? Car accident. The culprit said that Xiaola suddenly ran into the motorway, and the car behind her couldn't stop in time. What's the situation now? He just came out of the emergency room. He's still alive for now, For said. Then I'll go see her, Chen Zhao said after some thought. Although he did not have a deep friendship with Xiaola, they were at least friends. Plus, Shara had helped when Fei Lai was in labor. Chen Zhao told Fei Lai. Fei Lai also wanted to go see Shara. After all, she was closer to Shara. Shara had been at their house yesterday, and Fei Lai had a good conversation with her. Chen Zhao had no objections. He brought Fei Lai and the two kids to the hospital. For Fei Lai and I are at the hospital. Which room is Shara in? Room 309, For said over the phone. Chen Zhao's family went to room 309, but they did not see Shara. There were traces of someone lying on the bed, but Shara was nowhere to be seen. Where did Shara go? I don't know. Maybe she went to the toilet. Chen Zhao shrugged. Let's wait. He thought that Shara would be back soon, but after 10 minutes, she still did not come back. Chen Zhao could only call For again. For Shara isn't in the room. We've waited for 10 minutes, but she's still not back. Did she go for a checkup? Let me check. For was also confused. A few minutes later she replied. No, I checked. Shara didn't go for any checkup. She should be in the room getting in For. Chen Zhao looked. The For stand was still there, and so was the For bottle. However, Shara was not there. No. Wait, I'll come. A while later For arrived. Seeing the empty room, she was also confused. That's weird. Shara is so badly injured. Where could she go? For took out her phone and called Shara. Shara, what's wrong? Where are you? I'm discharged. It's urgent. With that, Shara hung up. For looked at the phone. What's wrong with her? She's so impatient. She hung up right away. Is she in some trouble? Chen Zhao asked. No, what trouble can she have? She's the best anesthesiologist in our hospital. Her income is even higher than mine. In America, doctors were high-income people. Among doctors, anesthesiologists and dentists had the highest average income. An extremely skilled anesthesiologist like Shara could earn close to $300,000 a year. In For's opinion, Shara had a proper job, a stable income, no bad habits, and a high EQ. She probably wouldn't cause any trouble. But her leg injury is really serious, For said. She can't leave the hospital alone. Let's go check the surveillance, Chen Zhao said. Not everyone could see the surveillance, but Chen Zhao still had some privileges in Chantilly Hospital. So they quickly saw the surveillance. Two patients had come to Shara's room. One had gauze wrapped around his head, while the other had gauze wrapped around his chest. Not long after entering the room, they pushed Shara out in a wheelchair. Was Shayla kidnapped? For guessed. They're Shara's friends. I've seen them before, Chen Zhao said. I'm still worried. I think we should call the police. Do you know where Shara's house is? I'll go take a look, Chen Zhao said. For send Fei Lai and my two babies home today. Chen Zhao remembered that the two people with Shara had magical waves on them, so he suspected that Shara had encountered some supernatural event. Chapter 1452. We have to go back as soon as possible. We have to destroy the comb as soon as possible, Sean said anxiously. Teacher Sean, what's going on? Pancat and Xiala were originally in the hospital, preparing to recuperate. However, Shan anxiously pulled the two of them out of the hospital. I know what's going on, Shan said. That wooden comb is not a magic tool. It's an evil channel. What do you mean? I don't understand. Pancat tilted his head and looked at Shan. I made a phone call today and asked my friend, Shan said anxiously. That comb is not a magic tool but a medium. Anyone who comes into contact with the comb will be marked, and then killed by evil illusions. Our souls will also be drawn to that evil existence through the medium, Shan said hurriedly. Evil existence? What is that? Maybe it's the legendary demon. Shan's expression was very ugly. Does that mean we just need to destroy the comb? Maybe. Shan was not very sure. After all, he had never encountered such a thing before. All the information he had now came from his friend. The more people died, the greater the effect of the medium. Shan and Pancat had already found it difficult to resist yesterday. They had experienced the illusion produced by the evil power, and knew very well how terrible it was. If they could not solve the problem as soon as possible, then they would be tortured by the evil power, and eventually have no choice but to commit suicide. At least that was what his friend said. When they arrived at Xia Lei's house, a trace of fear appeared on the faces of the three. All three of them had been tortured by the illusion. If possible, they really did not want to face that terrible illusion again. But they had no choice. They could only muster up their courage. Can you walk? Shan turned to look at Shayla. I can, Xiala said with a cane. She had just been in a car accident today, and her injuries were still very serious. But they could not do without her, because she was the owner of the wooden comb. As the owner of the medium, she had the right to destroy the comb. Pancat mustered up the courage to open the door. The room was completely dark, without any light. The three of them looked at each other, and finally stepped into the room. However, the moment they stepped into the room, they were plunged into darkness. Damn it, why is it so dark? Shayla immediately took out her phone, and turned on the flashlight. The surroundings immediately lit up. However, when they looked around, they realized that it wasn't Shayla's house. Instead, it was a wilderness surrounded by knee-high weeds. There was still a dark forest ahead. What's going on? Where is this place? Why are we here? Both Pancat and Shayla were stunned by the scene before them. They didn't understand. They had just stepped into the house a moment ago. And the next moment, they were in this strange place. All of this was too strange. Shan's expression was solemn. That friend of mine once said that if an evil existence obtains a soul through a medium, then its power will greatly increase, and it is possible to pull people into a different space. In that space, we will face that evil existence directly. What? That's impossible. All three of us who came into contact with the wooden comb are still alive. How could the evil existence you mentioned obtain a soul? We weren't the only ones who came into contact with the wooden comb. Today, the wooden comb was taken away by the police. There should be many police officers who came into contact with the wooden comb. You're saying that evil existence killed the police officers? It's very likely that there's more than one. Shan's expression became even more solemn. He didn't have much hope for this operation. Not to mention that they were all in poor condition. Even if they were in good condition, it would be very difficult for them to win. Well, what do we do now? Shayla looked at the two of them in fear. Stall for time, Shan said. Time in the different space is slower than the outside world, but time will still pass. When the sun rises in the outside world, the evil existence probably won't be able to maintain this space, and we will have a chance to escape. However, the owner of this place clearly didn't intend to stall for time. Something began to appear in the dark forest. It was a group of humanoid creatures with brown fur on their bodies. Their heads looked like goats, and their feet looked like goat hooves. However, their hands had 4 fingers. Stillborn monsters. Shan's body trembled. What? Shayla clearly hadn't heard of them. Satan's fanatics, stillborn monsters. Pancat also had a look of horror on his face. It is said that Satan's fanatics will rape women and make them pregnant. When the women give birth, they will leave behind a stillborn child, and then sacrifice the stillborn child to Satan. Eventually, they will awaken in hell and become Satan's evil servant. When Shayla heard this disgusting process, her whole body trembled. Among the group of stillborn monsters, there was a particularly tall stillborn monster. It was nearly 6 meters tall, and the 2 horns on its head were like a spiral. It held a large machete in both hands. "Prey! I have already smelled the prey. The prey has fallen into our trap. Children, find the prey and offer it to our master, the great Mikadas." The 3 of them wished they could grow another leg, but they were powerless. They were all injured and couldn't move easily. Soon they were found. These stillborn monsters' vision in the dark was much better than that of humans. Punkat and Sean immediately used their special skills. A stillborn monster pounced at Punkat, and Sean threw out a handful of magic phosphor. The magic phosphor instantly covered the stillborn monster. But how could these filthy creatures be killed by a mere magic phosphor? There were some burns on the stillborn monster's body, but they weren't serious. Punkat took out a talisman and shot it at the stillborn monster. The talisman landed on the stillborn monster's body, and it immediately howled. The other stillborn monsters surrounded them, but they didn't attack. Instead, they watched Sean and Punkat fight with their companions. "No, one talisman can't kill it." "Then use more talismans." "I don't believe we can't kill it." This time they weren't unprepared. They had bought a large number of talismans. Punkat threw out another 3 talismans, which landed on the stillborn monster's body. The stillborn monster finally fell to the ground, its body constantly twitching. The other stillborn monsters didn't rescue it. Instead, they surrounded it and ate its companions. Please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens Godly Emperor mobile version website. Chapter 1453. Seeing these stillbirth monsters devouring their own kind. Punkat, Sean, and Shayla's faces were pale. They were already doing their best to deal with a single stillbirth monster. What's more, there were thousands of them here. In the wilderness outside the forest, there were terrifying eyes everywhere. This was a hopeless situation. There was no chance of winning. Ong. At this moment, a deafening roar came from the depths of the dark forest. A huge shadow swept across the forest and appeared above the wilderness with a roar. The leader of the huge stillbirth monsters and the rest of the army all knelt on the ground when they saw this figure. "Great Lord Mikadas, your servant Dagon Byros pays his sincere respects to you," the leader of the stillbirth monsters shouted. The other stillbirth monsters seemed to be unable to speak, so they made strange noises. Mikadas descended from the sky, his huge body making a roaring sound. The 3 of them were already frightened. This monster called Mikadas was over 100 meters long and had 2 heads. It looked like a dragon and a snake. Its neck was slender and took up almost half the length of its body. "Humans, I like them whether it's their flesh and soul." Mikadas stretched out his slender neck and went in front of Shayla, Punkat, and Sean. The 3 of them felt cold, as if they felt the call of death. "I feel your fear and despair." Makata's other head stretched out. "More fear, more despair, only then can you become more delicious food." Sean gathered his courage and threw a bag of magic phosphorus at Mikadas, detonating it at the same time. But after the explosion, Mikadas was unscathed. Haha! Not only was Mikadas not angry, he laughed instead. His voice was filled with joy. "Yes, joy. Did you come up with this to make me happy? Very good, very interesting little trick." Mikadas laughed and said, "However, this stupid behavior offends me." Suddenly, Mikadas opened his mouth and wrapped his huge tongue around Sean. "Ah, Teacher Sean." Punkat was shocked and anxious, but also full of powerlessness. They had no chance of winning, no hope. Sean had already been swallowed by Mikadas, and Shara and Punkat could vaguely hear Sean's screams. But his screams were too short. "Which one of you wants to be next? I will bestow upon you the glory of becoming food." Only a ghost would want to be your food. Of course, Mikadas obviously wouldn't consider their inner thoughts. 2 huge heads stretched out. "Don't worry, I ate too quickly just now, so I didn't get to taste it. But this time, I will taste it slowly and let you fully experience the process of death and the pain." Xiala was so frightened that she sat paralyzed on the ground. Pankit's condition was not much better than Xiala's. Looking at the ferocious mouth that was about to envelop them, The two of them no longer had any hope. But at that moment, Mikada's movements suddenly paused, and two pairs of eyes stared at the darkness behind Shara and Punkat. Sorry, did I disturb you? An abrupt voice sounded. Xiaolei's pupils constricted. Why was this voice so familiar? Then a figure walked out of the fog. Xiaola cried out in alarm. How could it be him? Chen Zhao strolled over. This place looks very lively. Did I miss something? Food. Another food? Mikadas grinned. How come it's you? Chen? Xiaola was also confused. She didn't understand why Chen Zhao would appear here. I got your address from 4. I thought you might be in some trouble, so I came to your house. Seeing that your door was open, I came in directly. But somehow I ended up here. By the way, what is this place? Xiaola sighed. She didn't expect Chen Zhao to come here. To be honest, she had a good impression of Chen Zhao. She didn't want to drag Chen Zhao down with her. After all, Chen Zhao had 2 cute children. She didn't want them to lose their father. Human, this is my territory. And you will also be my food. Mikada stretched his head over. Xiaola and Punkat realized that Chen Zhao actually didn't feel any fear when facing this monster. Ha, bastard. Chen Zhao looked at Mikadas in surprise. You have the aura of a dragon and another aura. Roar. Mikadas was furious. What did you just say? Just then, Dagon Byros walked over. Human. I didn't think we'd meet again. Dagon, you know this human? The great Mikadas, Dagon Byros said. This is the human who destroyed my reflection medium last time. It's because of him that your plan to descend to the human world failed. So smelly. Chen Zhao covered his nose and took a few steps back. Who are you? Do we know each other? Human, your forgetfulness can't save your life. The one you defeated last time was just a clone of mine, Dagon Byros said. Dagon Byros said, Great Mikadas, please give your servant a chance to wash away the shame of the past. Go, but I want his soul. Yes, Mikadas. Dagon Byros's eyes glowed green. Human, if you can defeat my servant, I'll let you leave, Mikadas said in a mocking tone. I see. Chen Zhao rubbed his chin. Should I be grateful for your gift now? Shara and Punkat were both excited, but they were soon disappointed. The difference between Chen Zhao and Dagon Byros was too great. Dagon Byros was 6 meters tall. Compared to Chen Zhao, it was like comparing a giant to a baby. Such a difference in height couldn't be made up for, even though Dagon Byros had said that Chen Zhao had defeated his clone. However, it was clear that Chen Zhao had only defeated a fraction of Dagon Byros' power. Right now, Chen Zhao was facing a demon at its peak. For example, Punkat and Shan had tried their best, but they could only subdue an ordinary stillbirth monster. Dagon Byros clearly wasn't someone ordinary stillbirth monsters could compare to. Thus, the two didn't have any hope that Chen Zhao could win. Chen Zhao walked forward and faced Dagon Byros. Human, are you ready to die? I'm ready. Come, use your greatest power to kill me. Chen Zhao spread his arms. Chapter 1454. Dagon Byros spread his arms. Black clouds of air began to gather in his palms. Just then another pair of arms stretched out from under his armpits. He also spread his arms and 2 more black clouds appeared. After a few seconds, the 4 arms were raised high above his head. The 4 clouds of air began to close. Even Shara and Punkat could feel the terrifying aura. Dagon Byros shouted, Human, let the darkness devour you. A stone sword suddenly appeared in Chen Zhao's hand. He threw it with all his might. Whoosh! The stone sword pierced through Dagon Byros' head. Dagon Byros' expression instantly froze, and his body fell backwards. The black clouds of air gradually dissipated. Everyone's expressions froze. They stared at Chen Zhao dumbfounded. It was over. Just like that. Where was the battle? Ravage? No, not at all. In Shara and Punkat's eyes, the terrifying Dagon Byros had been killed so easily. He died under a sword. And just like that he was casually tossed to the side. Or could it be that this was simply an accident? Chen Zhao's victory was just a coincidence. Anyone would be able to do it, right? I won. Chen Zhao looked at Shara and Punkat with a smile. Let's go. Huh. Shara and Punkat still couldn't believe it. They turned around and looked at Mikadas in shock. Mikada's eyes glowed fiercely, but he didn't say anything. Chen Zhao still had a smile on his face. Shara and Pancat hurried to Chen Zhao's side and followed him closely. Shara and Pancat kept staring at Chen Zhao. Stop. I've changed my mind. Of course Mikados wouldn't let them go. He'd never considered this matter from the beginning. Shara and Pancat were shocked. Was that really the case? They all looked at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao also stopped and turned to Mikados, as if he'd known this would happen. Me too. I've decided to kill all of you. Shara and Pancat were stunned. They were also filled with terror. Kill all of them? Kill all of these demons? Kill these countless stillbirth monsters? And the master of these stillbirth monsters, Mikados? This gigantic monster? If you can kill all my servants, I'll let you go, Mikados said in a mocking tone. This time, Shara and Pancat didn't take it seriously. Even if Chen Zhao could kill them all, Mikados probably wouldn't keep his promise, let alone whether Chen Zhao could kill all of them. Chen Zhao shook his head. No, not just them. You're my prey too. Roar, prey? Are you treating me as prey? Ignorant and pathetic human, how dare you call me prey? Bastard, who do you think you are? Kill, 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 kill them all. Mikados roared and ordered his army of stillbirth monsters. Shara and Pancat felt that Chen Zhao was too impulsive. There was no benefit in angering Mikados at this point. Looking at the suffocating army of dead fetus monsters pressing forward, Lin Fan felt a chill run down his spine. Once again, Shara and Pancat felt the approach of death. Doppelganger. In the blink of an eye, Chen Zhao turned into 7. Cloning technique? Pankat's eyes lit up, but soon his eyes dimmed. Even though Chen Zhao knew how to clone himself, even if he became 7, it was still disproportionate to the thousands of stillbirth monsters. When the stillbirth monsters approached, the 7 Chen Zhao raised their arms at the same time. 1,000 sword control. Gray light bloomed in an instant. Shara and Pankat's jaws dropped. They watched in shock as the thousands of swords flashed across the night sky, tearing apart the darkness. Even Mikados had a look of disbelief on his face. The stillbirth monsters were decapitated in droves. In the blink of an eye, half of them were dead. To Shara and Pancat, this was an unprecedented shock. Especially Pancat. He and Sean had barely killed a stillbirth monster together. However, the man in front of him had easily killed thousands of stillbirth monsters. After the stillbirth monsters were killed, the dark lava started spreading and devouring their corpses. Chen Zhao realized that the dark aura on these stillbirth monsters was the same as the dark lava. 1 or 2 stillbirth monsters didn't have much dark aura. But if it devoured all the dark aura here, the dark lava would at least double in size. There was also the big guy in front of him, Mikados, although he was a mixed-blood dragon. He had a very dense dark aura. Roar roar, Mikados exploded. He was furious. Even though he said that Chen Zhao would let the 3 of them go as long as he killed all the stillbirth monsters. But he had never planned to do that. He didn't think that Chen Zhao could really kill all the stillbirth monsters. He didn't care about Dagon Byro's death. Dagon Byro's was just a dispensable existence. On the surface, Dagon Byro's was the leader of the stillbirth monsters, but he was actually just managing them. Now that Dagon Byro's was dead, he could choose another stillbirth monster to bestow power on. Before long, there would be a 2nd and 3rd leader. The army of stillbirth monsters was the foundation. But now, the dead fetus army had suffered such a huge loss. How could he tolerate this? Mikada's 2 heads opened their mouths at the same time. One spat out turbid flames, while the other spat out green corrosive liquid. Shara and Pankat's scalps went numb. Had the monster finally attacked? But the next moment, the dark lava blocked Mikada's spit. Don't worry. I'll send you on your way soon. Chen Zhao pointed, and the dark lava pounced at Mikados. Frightened, Mikados hurriedly spread his wings and soared into the sky. Chen Zhao was still slaughtering the stillbirth monsters without restraint. These stillbirth monsters were loyal to Mikados, but it didn't mean that they were fearless. Soon, they were afraid of being killed. Soon they scattered and ran for their lives. Because of the decrease in numbers, the scene became sparse. The 7,000 Imperial 1,000 swords weren't as effective anymore. Chen Zhao put away the Imperial 1,000 swords. All techniques returned to 1. The 6 clones and the main body merged into one. Chen Zhao looked at Mikados in the air. "It's your turn, bastard." Chen Zhao was still smiling. But in Shera's, Pankit's, and even Mikadas's eyes, this smile was filled with malice. "Are you ready to welcome death now?" Mikados was about the same size as the black dragon. But the difference in strength wasn't small. The two heads looked quite impressive. In reality, whether it was strength, speed, or dragon aura, they were all much weaker than the black dragon. Chapter 1455. Shera and Pankat were already dumbfounded. Chen Zhao's figure flashed. Shera and Pankat felt the wind pressure from the intense flow of air. Just the wind pressure alone almost made them lose their footing. They looked for Chen Zhao again, but he was nowhere to be found. Just as they were looking for Chen Zhao, there was a loud bang in the distance. Then they saw Makarza's huge body fall from the sky. If the black dragon had been struck by this attack, it might not even have been injured, let alone causing it to fall from the sky. But Mikaras couldn't even take a blow with 30% of Chen Zhao's strength. Just then, the dark lava surged toward Mikaras like a tide. At this moment, the dark magma had doubled in volume. Mikaras struggled wildly, shaking off the dark lava around him and on his body. But the next moment, the dark lava turned into countless blades of different sizes. Mikaras was covered in wounds in an instant. Who knew how much flesh had been cut off from his body? Roar! Shera and Pankat were so shocked by the battle that they couldn't close their mouths. Was this man still human? Mikaras wanted to flap his wings and fly, but Chen Zhao was right above him. Mikaras was less than 10 meters in the air. Chen Zhao pressed down on Mikaras' head again. Mikaras fell into the mountain of blades formed from the dark lava again. Roar! Father, save me! Mikaras howled. At this moment, a black shadow descended from the sky and landed on Mikadas's body, fusing into one with him. Chen Zhao was surprised. This aura? It was the black dragon's aura. Mikadas's aura had recovered. It was even stronger than before. But this power was external after all. It didn't belong to him. Chen Zhao didn't give him much chance. A black trident appeared in his hand. The next moment, Chen Zhao fell from the sky like a falling meteor. The black trident stabbed into the intersection between Mikadas's two necks. Roar! Mikadas shrieked. Chen Zhao twisted the black trident in his hand and tore open the intersection of its neck. Just then Chen Zhao had an idea. He gave up on killing Mikaras. Instead, he flew and landed in front of Mikadas. Now it's my turn to give you a chance. Chen Zhao looked at the dying Mikadas. Mikadas tried his best to lift both of his heads. His wounds were healing rapidly. However, his powerful recovery did not mean that he was completely unscathed. Both Shala and Pankat were shocked to the extreme. He thought that this was a situation where he would definitely die. Unexpectedly, Chen Zhao was the real monster. Mikadas was scary enough. But before Chen Zhao, he was like a child. Attack or defend. 3 chances. If you're still alive after 3 tries, I'll let you go. The dark lava was shrinking. Ever since its volume doubled, Chen Zhao felt that it seemed to have changed. So Chen Zhao wanted to experiment with Mikadas. Mikadas knew that he was in big trouble this time, so he didn't dare to be careless. He did not dare to hold back. If he did not use his full strength, he would definitely die. Chen Zhao silently felt the changes in the dark lava. If the dark lava had been a part of Chen Zhao's body before, it was now his limbs. All this time, Chen Zhao's control and practice of the dark lava, or the dark serum, had been through Samuel. Samuel's control of the dark lava had reached a level where he could do whatever he wanted. He could also take away Chen Zhao's dark lava directly. Of course, as a projection, Samuel could not control too much or take away too much time. However, Samuel's control of the dark lava and the dark serum had reached an amazing level. Samuel could control the dark lava to simulate part of his attacks. He could even use the dark lava to simulate certain forms to release magic. Of course, what Chen Zhao could do now was only mimicry. For example, Samuel could make the dark magma imitate the posture of an animal or a human, and make the attacks of an animal or a human. However, Chen Zhao was still at the level of making the dark lava mimic objects, such as blades. This was the difference in essence. Chen Zhao still could not mimic right now. However, he could feel the changes brought about by the dark lava. The increase in his own power could bring about changes. The dark lava could also bring about changes. If Chen Zhao and the dark lava were compared, it would be like a soldier and a weapon. If the soldier's power increased, the weapon in his hand would naturally be more powerful too. And if the weapon's power increased, the damage it could bring would naturally increase too. Chen Zhao started to gather the dark lava, completely fusing it into his body and the black trident in his hand. Both Chen Zhao and the trident in his hand turned red and black. Mikados exploded with all his power. Ring of destruction. Rings of flames exploded around him. Chen Zhao was familiar with this move. It was the same as Black Dragon's. If it was Black Dragon, Chen Zhao would still be a bit worried. But with Mikadas's Ring of Destruction, Chen Zhao couldn't feel any pain, even if he stood still. Of course, this was also because he had assimilated with the dark lava, which greatly increased his resistance to heat. Chen Zhao moved and charged through the Ring of Destruction. He swept the trident horizontally, and the black trident instantly grew dozens of meters long. Rumble! A ravine was left on the ground and Mikadas's 2 heads were smashed into pieces. Oh no! He was too heavy-handed. He didn't even last 3 moves. Chen Zhao had originally planned to keep Mikados alive to test his moves, but he had underestimated the power of his attack. In the end, he killed Mikados in 1 move. An incorporeal figure floated out of the huge corpse. Despicable human, you said you'd give me 3 chances. Mikada's soul cursed. Chen Zhao raised his arm. Sorry, you're more fragile than I thought. Boom! The white light flashed, and Mikada's soul was also shattered by the white light, leaving nothing behind. Chen Zhao twisted his neck. It seemed like he could only test his moves on Old Turtle. Chen Zhao put away Mikada's body. He couldn't let his family eat it. Usually, Chen Zhao would have an estimate of whether or not it could be eaten. Mikados was a hybrid. Hybrids usually had very heavy chaotic power. Humans or animals could mutate if they ate it. At least, if they didn't have enough resistance, they couldn't be eaten. But if family pets could be eaten, they were either demons or hybrids. Please remember this book's domain name, mobile version. Chapter 1456. The alternate dimension started collapsing. In less than 10 minutes, it would completely collapse. Chen Zhao frowned. Dark lava immediately rushed out from under his feet and spread in all directions. In just a few seconds, a stillbirth monster was caught. Then a second, a third and a third. Chen, why did you catch these things? I'm so poor that I can't even cook, Chen Zhao said. I caught some game for my pets. As soon as these stillbirth monsters were dragged back by the dark lava, they would immediately be enveloped by it. As for their lives, that wasn't within Chen Zhao's consideration. It was fine as long as their dark power didn't leak out. Time was of the essence. Once the alternate dimension completely disappeared, the 3 would be expelled from this place, and the stillbirth monsters would be banished to some corner of hell. The alternate dimension wasn't big. It was probably less than 2 square kilometers. Chen Zhao's dark lava covered an area of about 1 square kilometer. After it stretched out in strips, basically no creature could escape from Chen Zhao's control. The stillbirth monsters were dragged out one by one, and then enveloped by the dark lava, turning them into black cocoons. Seeing that the stillbirth monsters were gone, Chen Zhao put away the dark lava. By then, the alternate dimension had already collapsed in front of them. The next moment, the 3 were back in Shera's house. It was like a dream. At least for Shera and Pancat it was a dream. Crack! Chen Zhao turned on the light. Shera and Pancat immediately felt the light. The bright light made them feel safe and comfortable. Huh! Suddenly, Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. Your troubles don't seem to be limited to the thing hiding in the alternate dimension. Shera was stunned. Pancat didn't just admire Chen Zhao now. He even feared him. This person was so powerful that it surpassed his knowledge and understanding. After hearing Chen Zhao's words, Pancat immediately realized that he and Shan seemed to have missed something in this house. Chen Zhao walked to the stairs. Shera and Pancat immediately followed him. Chen Zhao rubbed his chin and looked at the floor beside the stairs. Chen, what are you looking at? Under the floor, Chen Zhao said. How long have you lived here? Less than 2 months, Shera said. Xiaola said. It was your payment last time that allowed me to have enough money to buy this house. No wonder, Chen Zhao said. If you stay here for too long, you'll probably die a horrible death. Well, what exactly is here? Chen Zhao flicked his finger. The wooden boards on the ground were lifted one by one, revealing the basement below. However, Xiaola and Pancat couldn't see anything. It was too dark down there. Is there anything down there? Shayla's face was filled with fear. You'll know soon enough. At this moment, the lights in the living room dimmed without warning. The whole room was plunged into darkness once more. However, the darkness did not last long. Suddenly, a fire appeared in the dark basement. In the next instant, a twisted ball of flame crawled out of the basement. Evil scorching flame spirit? Pancat was shocked. No, it wasn't the burning fire evil spirit, but a twisted monster made up of dozens of burning fire evil spirits. He had never seen such an ugly, disgusting monster. However, before he could react, Chen Zhao had already swung his fist and smashed the twisted monster into pieces. Sparks and ashes scattered everywhere. Chen Zhao raised his right arm. The mouth of gluttony absorbed. Delicious! The mouth of gluttony sensed it. Pankat's face was filled with shock, but he quickly regained his composure. Compared to the countless stillbirth monsters and Mikados, this twisted evil spirit did not seem that scary. Since Chen Zhao could easily deal with Mikados and the army of stillbirth monsters, it was not surprising that he could destroy this twisted evil spirit. The lights in the room lit up again. Mr. Chen, what's going on? I believe you don't want to know what's going on down there, Chen Zhao said. You better call the police now. Call the police? Xiaola was still confused. And sue the person who sold you the house. Xiaola could not help but be curious, but she soon regretted it. Even Pancat regretted his curiosity when he shone his flashlight at the situation below. It was too scary. There were dozens of charred corpses down there. These corpses were all stuck together like charcoal, forming a hellish scene. This house could not be lived in anymore. Xiaola was really unlucky. Even if Chen Zhao solved the problem, it was still uninhabitable. Imagine having dozens of charred corpses buried in the basement of your house. Even Chen Zhao could not tolerate it, let alone Xiaola. It was not fear but disgust. It was human instinct. Then Xiaola called the police. When the police arrived, they were also shocked. After checking, they discovered that there were 66 charred corpses in the basement. The oldest among them was at least 30 years old. Almost all of them had become mummies. Xiaola wanted to cry but had no tears. She had no choice but to ask the real estate agency for compensation. Of course, she had just bought the house. Now that there was a problem with the house, it was easy to ask for compensation. Chen Zhao agreed to let Xiaola stay for a few days until she found a new house and settled down. She did not want to step foot in that house anymore. It was too scary. She shuddered at the thought that she had lived in that house for more than a month. There were also dozens of corpses and their twisted souls that had fallen asleep with her. The three left after giving their statements to the police. Chen Zhao brought Xiaola to his house. Of course, Chen Zhao did not welcome Pancat, even though Pankat's tone implied that he wanted to get to know Chen Zhao better. Chen Zhao ignored Pancat. They were not familiar with each other and did not interact much. Enjoying the night sea breeze on the highway, Xiaola asked curiously, Mr. Chen, are there many people like you? I have quite a lot of friends like you, Chen Zhao said. How about compared to the supernatural organization in Los Angeles? You know about the supernatural organization? I once attended a class under Pancat and Sean's guidance. You don't know Sean, right? He also fell into that space and was eaten by that monster. I'm the president of the supernatural organization. Xiaola was stunned, but she quickly understood. This did not surprise her too much. A powerful existence like Chen Zhao was completely different from a wild spiritualist like Pancat. Therefore, it was not strange that Chen Zhao could lead the supernatural organization. Chapter 1457. Today, Xiaola had witnessed the huge difference between the so-called strongest and wild spiritualists. Pancat and Sean had fought with their lives and barely defeated a stillbirth monster. But Chen Zhao could easily kill hundreds and thousands of stillbirth monsters. This gap was no longer something that could be described as 10 times, or even 100 times. It was no wonder that Chen Zhao was the president of the supernatural organization. Pancat and Shan were probably just beginners. After arriving at Mingyue Villa, Xiaola wasn't unfamiliar with the place. After all, she'd stayed here once. You can stay in the same room as last time. I'll go feed the fish, Chen Zhao said. Xiaola knew that this was what Chen Zhao meant by feeding the fish. It should be those big sharks. Xiaola saw Chen Zhao jump off the cliff. She wasn't surprised. After all, she'd seen Chen Zhao fly before. Chen Zhao flew to the surface of the sea, and his aura spread out. But what Chen Zhao didn't expect was that other than Amon, Little Nine, and the 5 tiger generals, even the dolphin family had come. It seemed like they wanted to settle down here and wouldn't leave. Chen Zhao didn't feed them the corpse of the stillbirth monster. It wasn't something they could digest. Chen Zhao didn't want such a cute dolphin to turn into something weird. They still wanted to keep their daughter's company. As for the 5 tiger generals, Chen Zhao didn't care what they became. They were just here to guard the house. Amon and Little Nine could digest it directly. The dark aura of the stillbirth monster was nothing to them. Even Chen Zhao could digest it directly. But the problem was that Chen Zhao had learned about the stillbirth monster's origin from Pancat. This was disgusting. In a sense, it was like a human stillbirth. Chen Zhao couldn't stand it. He gave the dolphins some strengthening potions and intelligence potions. Amon and Little Nine needed to eat. Apart from Chen Zhao feeding them, they basically had to go to the open sea to find food. Chen Zhao knew that they'd found a trench in the open sea. There were many giant squids in the trench that was thousands of meters deep. These squids were much larger than what humans had discovered, and had more attack power. Because they could only survive under high water pressure, it was difficult for humans to discover them. The ecology there was very intact, so these 2 big eaters would not destroy the ecology there. The 2 of them could eat as much as they wanted, and eat until they were full every time. It wouldn't cause any ecological imbalance there. After all, the trench was huge. No matter how much they ate, how much could they eat? Unless their appetite increased by 1,000 times, it would be impossible for them to destroy the ecological balance of a trench. Amon's body had basically reached its limit. In fact, before the tropical storm, Amon's body size had already reached its natural limit, and his subsequent growth was due to the mutation after devouring a large number of evil spirits. Little Nine was now 50 meters long, but Chen Zhao had no idea how big it could grow. The 5 tiger generals' physiques had also been increasing recently, but this region of the sea was enough to support them. Plus, Chen Zhao would feed them every now and then, so the 5 of them wouldn't cause any damage to Moon Coast's ecology. With the 5 of them guarding the coastline, as long as they didn't encounter a fishing boat, or the 2-headed shark from before, they could basically settle everything. Of course, they are not invincible. After all, there are creatures called killer whales in this world. But if they encounter a killer whale, they just have to run toward the shallow water, and the killer whale would not dare to come over. Most of the time, whales rarely go near shallow water, because they will be stranded. Because of their body structure, once they get too close to shallow water, they will lose their mobility and be pushed to the beach by the tide. In the end, they will die of dehydration. Once the water depth is less than 10 meters, they will leave the area on their own. Sharks, on the other hand, don't have this restriction. They are stranded in a very shallow water depth. They can also move freely in a depth of 2 or 3 meters. Of course, with Little Nine and Amon's scent, no large creatures dare to approach here. Even killer whales are no exception. Many marine creatures can distinguish the number of creatures in an area, or how big the area is through scent. If killer whales can do it, so can sharks. At least, after Chen Zhao's family moved here, and solved the problem of attracting sharks, there have been no larger sharks or whales in the nearby waters. Even the more docile ones did not come. They clearly know that something exists here. So the smarter a creature is, the more they know how to avoid danger. Dolphins are also very smart, but their personalities are actually very similar to humans. Curiosity will drive them. Even if they know there is danger, they will still approach and see. Moreover, they trust humans too easily. In the past, when the fishing industry was less developed, How did humans kill dolphins? First, they would feed the dolphins. Once was enough. The next day, the dolphins would play with fishermen. But what awaited them were fishing nets and butcher knives. Humans used their naivety and trust to hunt them. Perhaps they still thought that this was a unique way of playing games for humans, until they died. Just like their trust. After they became familiar with the 5 tiger generals, they were no longer afraid. Every day, they would cause trouble and steal the 5 tiger generals' prey. When the 5 tiger generals put up a fish, they would go up and steal it. After that, they would be chased by the 5 tiger generals for a few miles. This is how they play. The big ones are like this, and so are the small ones. Actually, they have no evil intentions. They just like to play. However, their games are like pranks to Chinzhao. They never get tired of this game where they want to bite me, but can't catch me. There were even worse cases. For example, when the 5 tiger generals were eating, they would directly defecate on them. Anyone would be angry if they did that. Of course, this evil family wouldn't dare to do anything bad to Amon and Little Nine. After all, they are too scary. One is 50 meters long, and the other is 100 meters long. They are both huge monsters. They can only bully the 5 tiger generals who are at the same speed as them. After feeding the dolphins, Chunzhao jumped into the sea and swam underwater with the dolphin family and the 5 tiger generals. After swimming for a dozen miles, they entered the deep sea. The water here is already 100 meters deep. There are more species in the sea. Suddenly, Chunzhao felt a magic wave in front of him. A spiritualist fell into the water? Chunzhao's heart jumped. He followed the magic aura and looked forward. But no matter how he looked, he didn't find anyone. But the magic wave was still there. Chapter 1458. Wasn't he on the surface? Chunzhao was confused. Had the spiritualist sunk into the water? But he didn't see anyone in the shallow water region. Had he sunk into the deep water region? If he had sunk into the deep water, then he should be dead. After all, regular spiritualists shouldn't be able to withstand such high water pressure. Also, judging from the waves of magic, the owner of this magic wasn't strong. He shouldn't be that strong. But the magic was still there. This meant that the owner of the magic wasn't dead yet. Chunzhao dove into the deep water region and started searching at the bottom. After searching for a long time, he still couldn't find anyone in the water. Chunzhao could basically confirm that the area was about 1 kilometer in diameter. As long as Chunzhao left this range, he would feel the magical waves disappear. Chunzhao searched back and forth in this area. He really couldn't find any ghost survivors. Chunzhao suddenly paused and slapped his head. Wait, wasn't it human? Why did it have to be human? It could be other creatures too. Perhaps it was a magical creature. This time Chunzhao searched more carefully. First, it had to be big enough. It couldn't be a small fish or shrimp. Those creatures that only had instincts definitely wouldn't have magic. Don't even think about it. Even in an environment like hell, small fish and shrimp wouldn't have magic, let alone in the human world. Also, these creatures were usually bigger than normal. This was because magic could stimulate the abnormalities of creatures. For example, the mixed bloods in his family. Just then Chunzhao saw a fish. It was colorful and had a round mouth that could probably fit an adult's fist. It was about 80 centimeters long, but it was quite fat. However, Chunzhao didn't know what species it was. Was it that fish? Chunzhao suddenly sped up and swam through the water. Chunzhao believed that no creature could be faster than him in the water. Even fish were no exception. Even the fastest sailfish in the world couldn't outrun him. Sailfish's normal speed was 110 kilometers per hour. In a short time, they could reach a maximum speed of almost 200 kilometers per hour. Chunzhao hadn't tested his own speed, but he was definitely faster than this. Ever since he absorbed the deep sea, his speed in the sea was close to his speed on land. Instantly, Chunzhao caught the fat fish. The fat fish struggled in Chunzhao's hand, but it couldn't break free. However, the moment Chunzhao grabbed the fish, he felt that it had no magic power. Clearly, the mana fluctuations were not emitted by this fish. Chunzhao loosened his grip, and the fat fish leaped out. Chunzhao wanted to let it go. However, it just happened to be heading straight for the 5 tiger generals and the dolphin family. Under normal circumstances, it would be very cautious. Once a shark approached, it would flee immediately. However, it had just been caught and was still panicking, so it had no idea where to run. Old Zhang opened his mouth and bit off half of the fat fish. The fat fish was not dead yet. It was still struggling to swim with only half of its body. Dolphin's family wasn't kind either. They went up and fought over the food. Chen Zhao continued to search for the source of the magic power. An area with a diameter of 1 kilometer was not a small area. At the very least, it was a very large area for a single person. In the deep sea, big fish were not rare at all. There were at least 80 big fish in the entire area. Whenever Chen Zhao saw a suspicious fish, he would go up and catch it. If he realized something was wrong, he would throw it away. However, the 5 tiger generals and the dolphin family did not reject anything. Chen Zhao let go of the front, and the back fell into their mouths. Suddenly Chen Zhao paused. There was a huge giant clam before him. So big. Such a huge giant clam. It looked like it was almost 5 meters in diameter. The giant clam opened slightly. There was an irregular black pearl inside. Usually pearls were round. However, the black pearl could not be described as a pearl. It could only be described as a piece. The pearl was probably as big as an adult's thigh. It looked like a kid's play with plasticine or chewed gum. Chen Zhao's heart jumped. It was definitely this thing. It was the magic it was emitting. Chen Zhao swam over slowly and reached for the pearl. However, the giant clam seemed to have sensed danger or sensed Chen Zhao. The lid closed and clamped down on Chen Zhao's arm. Damn, it reacted so fast. Chen Zhao tried to pry it open with his other hand, but he could not. Try again. He still could not. No way. He couldn't even pry it open? The strength of this giant clam was too great. Chen Zhao could not use his full power right now. Plus, he did not really want to hurt the spiritual creature, so he did not kill it directly. Chen Zhao wanted to bring the giant clam home. He wanted to make a water tank and raise it in his home. However, the giant clam's strength exceeded Chen Zhao's expectations. This made Chen Zhao give up. It was indeed very ornamental to raise it at home. The key was the danger. Especially the 2 little guys at home. They did not understand danger. If they climbed into the water tank and were clamped by the giant clam, it would be very dangerous. However, he could raise it in the nearby sea. Anyway, Chen Zhao just wanted to bring this good thing to his home. He could not bear to kill it. However, the giant clam would not let go. Chen Zhao was a bit depressed. He could forcefully pry it open, but it would strain the muscles inside. The giant clam might be big, but it was actually quite fragile. Chen Zhao still wanted to open it in a gentler way. What should he do? The giant clam was strong, but it could not hurt Chen Zhao at all. However, he could not just let it bite his arm like this. Chen Zhao suddenly thought of an idea. His fingers moved on his right arm, and he gently pressed on the giant clam's tender flesh. He wanted to tickle it. As expected, the giant clam loosened its flesh and Chen Zhao immediately retracted his arm. Shoo, good thing he let go. If he did not, he would have to use a more ruthless method. In that case, it would inevitably hurt the giant clam. Now he should bring it home. Chen Zhao pulled the giant clam up and felt its weight. It was about 12 tons. This giant clam was probably going to be the world's #1, right? It was probably going to become a spirit soon. It was not bad to bring the world's #1 giant clam home. In the sea, Chen Zhao did not have to spend much effort to bring the giant clam home. However, he had to think about where to put it. This was because giant clams also knew how to run. If they appeared in unfamiliar waters, it was possible for them to escape. Chapter 1459. One shouldn't think that shells couldn't move. Actually, these marine mollusks were quite mobile. Some small and medium-sized mollusks could move close to 1,000 meters a day without relying on the tide. Large mollusks, such as giant clams, could easily climb 2 to 3 kilometers in a day. Chen Zhao felt that this giant clam that was about to turn into a spirit was good stuff. Since it was good and he'd found it, it was his. Chen Zhao didn't want to leave it to fate. What was his was his. Who would leave it to fate? Fei Lai was speechless. She knew that Chen Zhao had come back last night, and even brought Shara back. Then Chen Zhao went to play in the sea at night. He played for the whole night. In the morning, Shara told Feilai what had happened last night. Feilai was unperturbed. After all, she already knew about Chen Zhao's abilities. "Chen, why did you destroy the monster's body?" Feilai said carelessly. If he kept it intact, he could make a specimen at home as a collection. Shara broke out in a cold sweat. As expected, she didn't have anything in common with Feilai. If she faced an evil spirit, she would be toyed to death. Even if their family were to face the Devil Legion, they would probably end up as a collection for their family. Just then, Shara and Feilai saw Chen Zhao come up in the elevator. "Chen, you were in the sea last night?" "I swam dozens of nautical miles and found something amazing," Chen Zhao said. "What is it?" Shara and Feilai were instantly interested. Feilai also forgot that she was going to criticize Chen Zhao. "A giant clam. A huge giant clam. I think it's the biggest giant clam in the world. There's even a pearl inside. It's this big." Chen Zhao gestured with his hands. Feilai and Shara both had longing expressions. They clearly wanted to see the giant clam. So Chen Zhao's family and Shara all went out to see the giant clam that Chen Zhao had mentioned. When they reached the water where Chen Zhao had placed the giant clam, only Feilai and Shara went into the sea. They were all neatly dressed in diving gear. Chen Zhao stayed on the boat to take care of the two little guys. Little Zhilin also wanted to go into the water to see the giant clam. However, she was still too young. Chen Zhao definitely wouldn't agree. It wasn't deep water, but the water pressure of a dozen meters could already affect adults, let alone little Zhilin. Moreover, the position of the giant clam wasn't just a dozen meters. Seeing that Chen Zhao wouldn't let her in, Zhilin hugged her chest and puffed her cheeks, looking angry at Chen Zhao. "You can dive whenever you want when you can," Chen Zhao said matter-of-factly. "Anyway, don't think about diving now. Diving was different from swimming. Swimming was good for the body, but diving was dangerous. Moreover, a child might not know how to control himself, or the dangers involved in diving. Chen Zhao could control the water pressure, so that Zhilin wouldn't be hurt. But what if Zhilin sneaked into the water when Chen Zhao wasn't around? Little Zhilin was already having a hard time facing the waves, let alone diving into deep water. Nowadays, diving required a diving permit. Why did one need a diving permit? This was because diving had a certain degree of danger. Without a certain amount of training, it was very easy for accidents to occur. Half an hour later, Feilai and Shara boarded the boat. Both of them were still gasping in amazement at the astonishingly huge giant clam they had just seen. "Mom, I want to go down too, but Dad won't let me. Dad's a bad guy, right?" Zhilin immediately hugged Feilai and complained. Feilai giggled. "Yes, Dad's a big bad guy. Then Mom will let me dive and play, right?" "No." Feilai was still smiling. "Mom, you're a bad guy too. You're all bad guys. I'm very disappointed in you guys. I want to be alone." Zhilin stood at the edge of the deck. Chen Zhao and Feilai's faces darkened. Shara's face was filled with astonishment. The girl was too immersed in her role. Little Zhilin looked like a girl who had been hurt badly by both her parents and her parents. "Feilai, I think we should put more cartoons in our house," Chen Zhao said. "Disney's princess cartoons are pretty good." "I think so too." Feilai nodded. Zhilin had watched too many bullshit romantic movies. Even Chen Zhao and Feilai were tired of the plots, but Zhilin enjoyed them with great interest. "Since you don't want me anymore, I'll leave." Zhilin wiped her dry tears and dove into the sea. Startled, Shara hurriedly ran to the railing. "Chen, go down and save Zhilin." "Save what? She's just looking for an excuse." Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. Very soon, Shara realized that Zhilin had popped up. She was even stepping on Guan Laoda's back and grabbing his dorsal fin. Chen Zhao ordered Guan Laoda to bring Zhilin to play nearby, but not to dive more than 10 meters. Zhilin was still as troublesome as ever. However, Chen Zhao couldn't lock her up like a caged bird. Shara was speechless at the parents. However, she had to admit that growing up in a family like this was indeed very safe. Even the ferocious great white shark was a pet that guarded the house in this family. As long as she was in the water, Zhilin indeed didn't have to worry about getting hurt. However, Shara's head hurt whenever she thought about finding a place to live. Chen Zhao and Feilai had never chased her away, or expressed that she wasn't welcome. However, she still couldn't stay here permanently. Minghua Villa was nice. The food, accommodation, and entertainment were all top-notch, but it wasn't her home, after all. The next day, Shara found a place to stay. Chen Zhao and Fei Lai only asked her to stay out of politeness. Both of them didn't want anyone to disturb their lives. Of course, they welcomed occasional guests, but they weren't saints if they wanted to stay permanently. Of course, Shara still knew her manners. On the same day, Chen Zhao received a call from Seagate. It was Oliver Lerby's assistant. Seagate's design team had finished the second draft of Chen Zhao's yacht design. They needed Chen Zhao to make the final decision. The service provided by Seagate fully demonstrated what it meant to be rich. Generally, the yacht company would provide a design that would comply with whatever the customer requested. On the other hand, the service that Seagate provided to Chen Zhao was that apart from fulfilling all of Chen Zhao's requests, they would also provide their own ideas for Chen Zhao to choose from. There were also all sorts of high-tech equipment. Basically, everything that could be put into the design had been put in. Chapter 1460. Mr. Ofer, I don't need a weapon system. Chen Zhao pointed out a part of the design. Mr. Chen, almost all the super yachts in the world are equipped with weapon systems. Of course, it's up to you whether you want to use them or not. But you should know how precious the lives of a super rich person like you and your family are. So I think it's necessary to be prepared, Orford Rabier said. I have my own plans. It's not that I'm unprepared, but I believe in protecting my family more, Chen Zhao said. So the weapon system can be removed. Of course, if you can help me get a nuclear warhead and missile launcher, I'm willing to install it. Ofer and the other designers were all speechless. 300 million was a lot, but it was only enough to buy a nuclear warhead. Of course, since Chen Zhao had made this request, they wouldn't object. The decision was in Chen Zhao's hands. Also, since Chen Zhao said he had his own plans, they couldn't say anything. Chen Zhao was rich. He definitely knew how to protect himself and his family better than these people. Rich people definitely knew how to buy safety better than them. Mr. Chen, do you need the voice control, facial recognition, and fully automatic driving system? That's good, Chen Zhao said, nodding. Mr. Chen, if you don't want the weapon system, then do you want the small research submarine? Yes. In the future, it would be much more convenient for his family to see the underwater world. Chen Zhao asked again, how deep can the submarine go? 2,000 meters at the most. Can it be customized? I want to go deeper. It's fine if it's more expensive. Ofer Lerby and the other designers felt Chen Zhao's wealth once again. No problem. In this meeting room, only Chen Zhao had the right to say no or no. We'll contact the best submarine design experts. The operation of the submarine has to be as simple as possible. Of course, designing vehicles for the rich was based on the principle of simplicity. They couldn't design a boat for the rich and make it as complicated as flying a space shuttle. Then it was the interior design. There were also professional designers who communicated with Chen Zhao. From the size of the toilet to the color of the lighting, the interior designer had communicated with Chen Zhao. There was even a young girl's bedroom. Chen Zhao saw a burly man designing it for his daughter, and the details were very detailed. Chen Zhao even wondered if the designer was a pervert. Of course, Chen Zhao was happy to accept his design and concept. The designers who could sit in this conference room were basically the best in their respective fields. After more than 3 hours of discussion, they made some slight adjustments to the original design. He could basically finalize the draft and confirm the design plan. Chen Zhao also wanted to get the yacht as soon as possible, so he had to find a lawyer and sign a contract with them. Usually, with Chen Zhao's current wealth, he should find a regular private lawyer. In fact, private lawyers were very common in America. Most people in the middle class would have a private lawyer. If there was any trouble, a private lawyer would be able to solve it. Of course, this private lawyer didn't only serve this person. Private lawyers have many such clients. And rich people basically had a team of legal consultants. Chen Zhao was considering if he should find a private lawyer too. Suddenly he thought of Jerlin's aunt, who was also Jerlin's younger sister Alex. Alex was a lawyer, and a very powerful one at that. After walking out of the Seagate headquarters, Chen Zhao took out his phone and called Alex. "Hey Alex, you'll come to Jerlin's birthday, right?" "Of course I'll come," Alex answered. "Is your main business still in San Francisco?" "Why do you ask? Do you have a legal problem that you need my help with?" "No," Chen Zhao said. "I have a contract to sign, but I don't have a private lawyer yet. My fees are very high. If you can get to L.A. today, you'll receive a very generous reward." "Okay, what contract? Do you need me to draft it?" "I ordered a yacht from a company. I need you to be present to review the contract. The company will issue the contract." "Okay, I understand. Give me the company's contact number. I'll contact them first." Alex was very experienced. She didn't chat with Chen Zhao and went straight to the point. "Also the yacht specifications and price. Apart from legal support, I'll also be in charge of monitoring the company's progress, so I'll take at least 1% of the yacht's cost." 1% is impossible. It's 0. 1% at most. "What? Do you think I'm a fresh graduate? I'm not a beggar or a lawyer without any experience." Alex's voice immediately went up an octave. "My yacht is worth more than $300 million. 1% is enough for me to form a team of consultants." Although Chen Zhao was somewhat related to Alex, it wasn't enough for him to throw her a few $1,000,000. Chen Zhao looked for Alex mainly because of her professionalism, not because of their familial relationship. 300 million? You want to order a super yacht? You're that rich? Alex was shocked too. She thought that Chen Zhao would only order a yacht worth a few hundred or tens of millions. So 1% legal supervision fee wasn't too much. She really didn't expect that Chen Zhao would order a super yacht worth more than 300 million. "Okay, I'll get to L.A. today." Even if it was only 0.1% legal supervision, it was still a lot of money for Alex. Legal supervision also included supervision of the design and construction costs. For example, the yacht company's false price was also within her scope. After the yacht company came up with the final plan, Alex still needed to consult and investigate all aspects of the design plan. Among them, there was also a flexible price. This was used to cover the changes in the price and labor costs that occurred during the construction of the yacht. She also needed to negotiate this flexible price. In the end, she would get an estimated $500,000. Of course, it was also a very generous reward for her. "By the way, is it convenient for people to live in your house?" Chen Zhao hesitated. "Please remember this book's domain name, mobile version." Chapter 1461. No one could take Jerlin away from him, even if it was just a temporary loan. Even if the person was Jerlin's relative. "If you want to visit Jerlin, you can come anytime." Chen Zhao rejected Alex's request in a roundabout way. So petty. As a lawyer, Alex could obviously tell what Chen Zhao was implying. Chen Zhao didn't want her to stay at his house, but he also didn't want Jerlin to stay with Alex for now. "I've already booked the ticket. My flight is at 3 in the afternoon. Come pick me up at 5. With that, Alex hung up. Chen Zhao checked the time. It was only noon. Chen Zhao called Fei Lai. He wouldn't be going home at noon. After all, it would take almost an hour to get to Mingyue Villa from here. It would be even further from the villa to the airport. Since he had to pick Alex up later, he might as well stay in the city until it was time. Dragging time was the worst. The more you cared about time, the slower it would pass. Chen Zhao felt like an entire day had passed, but in reality, only half an hour had passed. Chen Zhao had no choice but to walk around. He remembered that Charla had told him last time that the wooden comb she'd bought that had caused trouble came from 558 Downey Street. Chen Zhao planned to go there and take a look. If the people from 558 Downey Street had sold that dirty thing to someone else, Chen Zhao had to get rid of a pest for the people. After all, Chen Zhao thought that Los Angeles was his territory, even though he never took the initiative to solve problems. But since the problem was right in front of him, Chen Zhao would take the time to solve it. This was a shop that normal people couldn't find. It was also Chen Zhao's first time here. However, he'd heard from the people in the association Many people in the association often visited this shop. The entire Downey Street was filled with high-end luxury shops. If the decorations weren't up to standard, the city government would shut them down. But the door of 558 Downey Street was very old. It was a wooden house from the 1920s or 1930s. It was old, and the paint on the door frame had almost faded. The windows weren't modern floor-to-ceiling windows. Instead, they were square glass windows made of wood. When Chen Zhao pushed the door open, he wasn't used to the dark environment in the shop. The items in the shop were also quite messy, and there were a lot of things. An old woman and a red-haired girl were lying on a chair behind the counter. When they saw Chen Zhao, they immediately jogged over with professional smiles. "Hello, sir. How may I help you?" Chen Zhao glanced at the red-haired girl. Her magic power was pretty good, probably about the same as Jalanash or Giselle in the association. As for the old woman sleeping on the chair, Chen Zhao felt that she should be similar to Gaia. However, this was only in terms of magic power. If it were an actual battle, the old lady would probably be torn apart by Gaia. Chen Zhao knocked on the glass counter. Seeing that Chen Zhao had ignored her and gone to disturb her boss, the red-haired girl frowned in dissatisfaction. "Sir, if you don't have any other requests, please leave," the red-haired girl said with dissatisfaction. Just then, the old woman woke up and looked at Chen Zhao. "Sir, what can I do for you? A while ago, you sold a wooden comb here, right?" Chen Zhao asked. The old woman looked at the red-haired girl in confusion. Chen Zhao didn't know if the girl was pretending, or if she really couldn't remember. Her eyes were blank. "I need to check. Is there a problem?" "There's a problem," Chen Zhao said. "Someone already died because of this comb." The old woman's and the red-haired girl's expressions changed slightly. Businessmen were most afraid of accidents. This was especially true for shops that sold magic items and magic raw materials. They were even more afraid of such things. "Who are you? Someone from the government? Or the victim's family?" The old woman stood up. She was already very old, and her body had shrunk. She looked less than 1.5 meters tall. However, her eyes were still lively. She stared at Chen Zhao with a sharp gaze. "Los Angeles is my territory," Chen Zhao said. Hearing that, the red-haired girl flew into a rage. "You want to slander our shop and then charge us protection fees?" Clearly, she thought that Chen Zhao was someone who wanted protection fees. Chen Zhao only glanced at the red-haired girl indifferently. She was probably just an employee here. With her brain, she probably wasn't the mastermind. Chen Zhao's gaze fell on the old woman. The old woman's magic power was definitely powerful. If this old woman was the mastermind, both in terms of life experience and personal strength, Chen Zhao wouldn't doubt it. Of course, Chen Zhao wasn't here to question her. He also wanted to clarify the situation. The old woman wouldn't think that Chen Zhao was someone who wanted protection fees. Someone who could find her shop and even dare to stand in front of her and denounce her was definitely not a hooligan. Plus, she'd been in Los Angeles for so many years. It wasn't like she didn't know what was going on. She knew about the supernatural organization. Recently, they'd become even more famous. Moreover, the supernatural organization claimed that Los Angeles was their territory. Apparently, the president of the organization was a Chinese. The old woman could roughly guess Chen Zhao's identity. "Sir, we're also confused about your accusations. Can you tell us the whole story? Even if you want to convict me, please show evidence." "I don't have evidence, but I have witnesses," Chen Zhao said. "An ordinary person once came into your shop and bought a wooden comb. Then she caused a series of supernatural events. Because of the comb, a person died. He was a spiritualist." "Impossible," the old woman shouted immediately. "You're slandering me," the red-haired girl yelled agitatedly. "How can an ordinary person come here? That's the truth. For an ordinary person to find this place, she can't come here unless someone brought her in, or someone from your shop wanted her in," Chen Zhao said indifferently. "I don't care if you believe me or not. I just need an explanation." "What if we can't?" the old woman asked in a low and hoarse voice. It seemed that she was also angered by Chen Zhao's barbaric attitude. "If you can't, I'll tear down this shop and chase you out of Los Angeles." Although it seemed like a bully bullying the weak, This was the world. However, this was how the world worked. Moreover, this incident was caused by this shop in the first place. Chen Zhao had already confirmed that it was the truth. Shara was indeed a victim, and someone had died. Therefore, no one was innocent. Please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens Godly Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1462. The old woman's face was green. Even so, she didn't want to fight Chen Zhao. No matter what, it wasn't wise to fight Chen Zhao. If she was younger, she would probably tear the man before her into pieces and stuff him into the cellar. She was older. Although she had more magic power, her energy, stamina, and consciousness weren't as high as before. On the other hand, her employee, the red-haired girl, was like an angry rooster. Red and black balls of energy appeared in her palms. Chen Zhao could feel the girl's magic power. He'd never seen it before. It shouldn't be the magic school he was familiar with. Seeing the girl's magic, the old woman immediately frowned and scolded. "Wire, stop. You can't do anything here. Put away your magic." If someone had to fight, it should be her, not Wire. Since she didn't want to fight, what was the point of Wire doing it? At least for now, the old woman didn't plan on falling out with Chen Zhao and the supernatural organization behind him. "Sir, what kind of explanation do you want? Why did you sell that comb and your intentions?" The old woman took a deep breath and calmed herself down. Turning to Wire, she said, "Wire, look at the account book. Did he sell that comb from our shop?" Even now, the old woman still doubted Chen Zhao's words. Wire glared at Chen Zhao and opened the account book unhappily. "When was it sold?" "About 2 months ago." Wire started searching. Finally, she found the sales record on the account book. Wire was an employee in the shop. Of course, she needed to record what she sold. Because the old woman didn't know how to use electronic devices, she kept records in the account book too. Wire took out another order to compare. After 10 minutes, Wire's expression froze. Noticing Wire's expression, the old woman's heart skipped a beat. Did something really go wrong? But the old woman didn't change her expression. Her gaze was indifferent. "Wire, did you find it?" the old woman asked casually, trying to stay calm. Wire nodded slightly. "That comb is a consignment. The seller is Ruan Faxben." Hearing this name, the old woman couldn't stay calm anymore. Ruan Faxi was a rather famous alchemist. But his fame didn't lie in how good he was, or what kind of works he had. And because of his vile reputation, he dared to try almost any magical tool. From Asia to Africa, then to Europe, and finally to the Americas, he left behind a notorious reputation. "Didn't you check if his consignment is dangerous?" the old woman scolded. She accepted alchemists' consignments in this magic shop and took a commission from them. However, in order to ensure their business reputation, the consignment also needed to be inspected. "I checked." Wire was so anxious that her tears were about to fall. Chen Zhao's face was still cold. He didn't know if they were acting or not. Before investigating clearly, he would not make a rash decision. The old woman sighed. When she heard that it was a consignment from Ruan Fassbender, her head swelled. The name was synonymous with trouble. Now she was 80% sure that the problem lay with Ruan Faxben. Wire must have checked the consignment. But with her skills, how could she beat a sly old fox like Ruan Faxi? Ruan Faxi only needed to disguise himself a little, and he would be able to fool Wire. Ignoring Ruan Faxi's alchemy skills, the two were not on the same level in terms of mentality. Ruan Faxi's personal deeds were too vile. He dared to do all kinds of forbidden experiments and tools. Who knew if this was another evil magic tool created by Ruan Faxi and used it to trick people? "It's just a normal psychic tool." Wire complained softly. She still felt that Chen Zhao was stirring up trouble. "Sir, I think it's our fault." The old woman quickly recognized the situation. She didn't have the advantage in terms of strength or logic. No matter how powerful she was, how many connections she had, and how experienced she was, she couldn't compare to the local supernatural organization. So, she admitted defeat and pushed the blame. "We didn't check if there's anything wrong with the consignment. We're willing to compensate the victims and pay a fine to the supernatural organization." The old woman lowered her stance. She first said that the problem was on them, but their problem was relatively minor, and they were also the victims. Moreover, they had a good attitude in admitting their mistakes. She couldn't possibly crush this old woman to death. You can contact the victim yourself, Chen Zhao said calmly. I'll give you the victim's contact information. As for the fine, the supernatural organization doesn't need it. Bring Ruan Faxburn to the supernatural organization's headquarters. Chen Zhao wasn't worried that the old woman didn't have money. This seemed like an old magic shop, but its sales weren't low. At least, the people of the organization spent more than $100,000 here every month. Chen Zhao estimated that this shop's monthly turnover could be more than 2 million. Even the compensation for the victims, Shara and Sean, might not be enough to make the old woman pay. The old woman frowned. Money was a small matter. Just as Chen Zhao had guessed, she had money. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that she was a billionaire. She could accept hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. But it would be troublesome for her to capture Ruan Faxburn. Ruan Faxi had caused trouble everywhere for many years, and still hadn't been caught. One didn't even need to think to know how powerful he was. How much money would she have to spend to capture him? Sir, there's only me and Wire in this shop. Do you think we have the ability to catch Ruan Faxibon? If you can't, you can find someone else. This shop had been open for almost 100 years. Chen Zhao believed that the old woman's connections weren't just limited to the two people in the shop. The old woman probably knew more people from the spiritual world than all the people in the supernatural organization combined. If she was willing to spend money, it was more than enough to capture an alchemist. Moreover, this matter was originally her fault, so she also had the obligation to do so. Of course, the old woman considered this problem. She was willing to pay, but she didn't want to get involved. She was doing business. How could she find someone to capture an alchemist? And it wasn't an ordinary alchemist. Just then, a middle-aged man with messy hair walked in. Hello, Ms. Wire, Ms. Mephisto. I'm here to collect the payment. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.